I'm Thad Kubishak, chairperson of the Public Works Committee. Public Works Committee will meet at 6 p.m. It's actually 6:35 p.m. on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, in the first floor conference room at City Hall, 444 West Grand Avenue, Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. And I will have everybody go around and introduce themselves for this meeting starting.
Okay, Tom Realm, Alderman, 4th District, member of the committee.
Joe Eichstadt, City Engineer. Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
I'm Bud Virgitsky, 2nd District Alderman.
Committee member. And then I'll
Scott Kellogg, Alderperson.
I'm Elizabeth Whalen, I'm a city resident, and I'm with Bird City and Monarch Encouragement.
Penny Van Tassel, Bird City, Monarch Encouragement, and Clean Green Action.
Mary Down, Clean Green Action, and Bird City.
Patrick Gatterman, Iowa Northward Paddle and Paddle.
Mike Sullivan, I'm a retired city employee.
Ryan Peterson, Wood County Sheriff's Department. Paul Mauer, Public Works Superintendent.
Jennifer Stoiber, city resident.
Brian Kalinsky, City Resident.
Jim Jean, City Resident.
Jennifer Gossick, city clerk.
Paul Stoltz, City Resident.
Shane Blazer, Alderman.
All right, with that being said, we'll go to item number 2, review and consider an initiative from Monarch Encouragement in Bird City for milkweed plantings on City-owned Boulevard at the south side of the expressway between Lincoln Street and First Street South, and then also, from my understanding, is after talking with Penny, other properties in the city as well, if that so choose. But I will give the floor to you. Penny Van Tassel gave me a call, and that's why this is on the agenda here, to kind of talk about what the mission is of their program and what they would like to see moving forward.
Okay. Hope you don't mind if I stand. I want to thank you all for letting me be here to talk for an hour and a half. Just kidding. Okay, so I'll start out with saying, what if we had a corridor of flowers and grasses blooming all the way from Waukesha all the way to Nakusa that were supporting pollinators and monarch butterflies? What if our municipalities would plant pollinator habitat instead of lawn grass, and they would stop mowing everywhere? Not mowing everywhere, but some places. What if instead of summer helpers mowing and using weed whackers, there was more prairies and more areas where the prairies were growing so that bikers, walkers, and motorists could enjoy more of nature? Monarch Encouragement started from a what if. We had 4 people interested in creating a monarch highway from Waukesha to Nakusa, and visions of flowers and prairies along our roadsides in Wisconsin Rapids. We're sponsored by Clean Green Action. The members are passionate about environmental friendliness and sustainable management of resources and properties. We received a grant from the Encourage Foundation to help us attain our goals, which is to promote awareness of the decline of pollinators, in particular the monarch butterfly. And most people now know that monarchs are like the spokesperson for insects everywhere and pollinators, and they're an example of how we need to change our practices in order to sustain insects, and especially pollinators, which we all depend on. We aim to create a community spirit of joy and friendship around the monarch butterfly and around the outdoors. To start off with, in 2018, we met with supervisors of the city and county lands, found out what was being done, and what our possibilities might be. We were able to get permission to start a test prairie on the Expressway hillside. Now I'm going to start calling it Butterfly Hill because we have a test prairie there, and we named it Butterfly Hill this year at our dedication. At that time in 2018, the slope was stopped. They stopped mowing it in 2018, and that's when our prairie started. Our Clean Green Action volunteers removed strips of sod, maybe 6 or 7 strips, and I think they were 50 feet long, or maybe more, 75, and it was very difficult work. And we planted flowers and seeds in those strips, according to the city engineer, who said we didn't want any trouble with erosion. And the flowers began to grow in 2018, and many of the seeds grew. And I watered them myself about once a week because 2018 was pretty hot and dry. This last summer, we had plans to increase the number of flowers on the hillside, and we were hoping to lay down tarps or something to smother the grass and expand the flower areas further to the east. And we had hoped to do at least 7 of them, about maybe 10 by 15 feet in area. And we had hoped to put up some signs so that the motorists would know what was going on, so it didn't just look like a neglected area. But we stopped because we realized we did not know the right people to talk to. And you guys didn't know us, and we didn't know you. So we kind of didn't really do much, except for we increased the number of flowers in the test prairie by around 175 of flowers and grasses. The flowers from last year grew more than up to my waist, and they did great. And the grasses began to grow. They're not just quackgrass, there's blue stems of different kinds and maybe some Indian grass. And the flowers did wonderfully, and there's always monarchs and there's always pollinators, bumblebees visiting there. So the idea for the test prairie is to start to provide habitat and we hope to increase the prairie on the hillside and make it a beautiful thing for the motorists who go by, but also for the walkers and the bicyclists. And we, in Clean Green Action, we're not the only ones that see a mowed flat area as rather a waste. There is a use for mowed areas, but to just simply mow because that's how you've always done it is old-fashioned. And you can make a prairie look beautiful, but you know, it takes time. So we have a couple years under our belt, and it did look grassy without many flowers. We have hopes to do better, and we'd like to see more happening there, but we need a plan. And I'm sure everyone here would like to see maybe a 5-year plan or 3-year plan of what could be done. And it could be done with citizen work, or it could be done with grant money. There's possibilities there. But the hillside is actually 7 or 8 acres. And there's another area to the east of there that's about an acre or an acre and a half. And it could be providing excellent monarch and pollinator and bird habitat. And we have a real crisis on our hands with birds and pollinators. They just don't really get much out of a mowed lawn. And they use the river, and they actually use the expressway as part of their migratory path. And I think many of us in the room may have sat in our cars at the traffic lights on the expressway in A Street and noticed a monarch butterfly fluttering by your car. And they're heading towards the river. And they use the river as migratory path. Wisconsin is on the migratory path for many birds and monarch butterflies. So we have many personalities in our city, and some people like to see order, and when they look at an unmowed area, they don't see beauty, and they see it as a neglected area. And many other people look at it and see a place for nature to have some things going on. And I see beauty where things are not mowed, and I'd like to see that hillside with a lot more flowers and a lot more prairie going on. And we would like to have a win-win situation. So we don't need the whole thing, but maybe the people who want it more manicured, they don't need the whole thing either. So I'd like to put that out there and looking for, something good to go on for birds and butterflies.
Wonderful, thank you, Penny. And this is a great project that we could definitely look at this winter time. You know, like you alluded to, there's other people, and we're not going to get into a discussion. I know, Jim, you have a stance on this, but I think that, again, with talking with the committee, the reason why I'm entertaining this is that I'm enrolled in a doctoral program in educational sustainability, so I understand the concept of eco-justice, that we need to incorporate everything around us, the earth included, all the species around us. But then again, there are appropriate places and not so appropriate places for different things. So I'm going to definitely keep this on the referral list. We'll talk, creating a plan would be a wonderful thing, that even if just a sketch of what we got. But I think that what I wanted to do was allow you guys to have the opportunity to introduce yourselves to us and whatever we can do to make Wisconsin Rapids a better place moving forward. So I appreciate that. So thank you guys for coming down.
Thank you.
Committee members, you
Any
got it.
questions?
Well, yeah, I'd like to see something in writing, a program. And I'd like to see how this is going to be financed and maintained. You know, the city keeps adding and adding, but we don't even add any people to take care of it. And consequently, it isn't maintained the way it should be maintained. So I think if we do anything, it has to be a program where the city is not going to be obligated to spend a lot of time, a lot of labor, because we just don't have it.
Exactly. So but creating that initial first step, like you said, and when we talked on the phone, by having like a referral list application with this, it isn't a lose situation. It's the start of a process. So no, I'm excited. So, Mr. Ray.
No, I'll let it go at that. We'll bring it back. I mean, no, however it proceeds, I'm not myself, I'm not gonna put something together what it is. Somebody's gonna have to bring some type of plan forward, and I don't think it's on behalf of the city to do. It's something that's brought from somebody else for them to come forward with some type of plan for.
Well, what
Then
I'm
us to
saying is,
consider.
you're talking about birds and butterflies and so forth. We've got an airport close by, and, we could have a problem there too. So we gotta look at all aspects of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Certain things, again, are very applicable on some, but having that public discourse, I think, is important.
So do I take it you're endorsing it?
No, I'm not endorsing necessarily this, but it's a case where down further on this, the reason why we're even talking about this, or why there was an initial thing, is because the city wasn't maintaining that hill.
Because it looked like crap.
And
In your opinion.
well, we're not going to have discussion on it. We're going to continue, but further down, number 9 is the lawn mowing practices. If we're going to continue, what are we going to do? Are we going to, because the committee asked staff to find other avenues of mowing that area, and one of them being was looking at the lawnmower at the airport. Another one was contracting out. There's got to be someone with a lawnmower that does it at a reasonable price. So until we figure this out, until we figure our lawn mowing practice out, we really can't move any further on anything else with that. Does that make sense, Mike? Good. So anything further? Item number 2. Item number 3.
This is hell over.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to place it on the referral list.
Yeah.
Second by Roy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Item number 3, review and consider the changes made to the East Grand reconstruction project, specifically the proposed boulevard areas that were originally planned as concrete, but now changed to sod. And I've gotten at least one correspondence with this. Mr. Getterman, would you want to talk on behalf of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, my name is Patrick. As some of you guys might know, I just purchased 711 East Grand Avenue. That's the old Shammy Car Wash, and I'm not trying to break that chain and say it's, you know, Northward Pedal and Paddle, but that's the best way of always saying, hey, this is the property I'm talking about. So the reason I want to discuss this, and it's interesting that I'm following this one because I'm advocating more for the concrete jungle right now. So the boulevard originally was planned, or preliminary was to have stamped concrete in front of not just our property, but I believe Stoiber's as well, Budigans, which is the funeral home. And with that, of course, it's sod. Now, I firmly believe that grass is a great thing. You know, we want to be a green city, but you know, with it being the boulevard, there's a lot of maintenance that will fall to the owners of the property. It's just a small, you know, piece of land. With that, you're going to fight salt. You're going to fight. You know, Joe has been, you know, honestly, the public works has been great to work with, but you're going to fight a lot of the public, as well as things you can't control, like the salt, the snow plows. You know, I think there should be maybe something for the community to reconsider, and maybe it's not stamped concrete, maybe there's an alternative. I just feel, you know, working with Joe, he suggested, you know, the next course of action is this. Come and talk to the committee, your local representation, because that's, you know, I agree. So I firmly believe, like, the preliminary was cool. You know, I love the fact of stamped concrete. And then maybe it's like a planter bed or some type of, you know, something. So at this point in time, like I said, I think we have to consider, you know, why was it changed, and you know, why would that maintenance, of course, fall on us, knowing that if you drop A Street, there's, you know, nice properties that it's tough to maintain sod when it's in a boulevard, and I think we all could agree to that. Even, you know, public works, it's tough. So I'd like to see what can we do to, or can we talk about some options, or is it completely off the table?
Does the committee know what this is?
Yeah.
Over by Shammy Car Wash and those businesses, it is sod. I drove down there. It
Yeah.
actually isn't very much boulevard.
No, it's
probably a foot and a half, maybe
Yeah, it's like
3
18
feet
inches wide, yeah.
And it,
Well, these people are gonna have problems too, especially if we continue to plow snow and remove snow like we have in the past. The sod's gonna be torn up all the time. When you're sitting up there 12 feet and looking down, you got 6-8 inches of snow, you can't tell if there's sod there or concrete there, or where you're at, really. So I think we're gonna have an expense if we leave sod there, and if there should have been concrete in there and we put sod in there, then we should get a rebate of some sort, because concrete is more expensive than sod, I believe.
yeah, why, how come it was changed, you know?
I don't. And like I said, we talked a lot. We had correspondence of, it was a mixture of a lot of things. You know, it was the preliminary plans. So he didn't say, you know, it was never finalized. It was preliminary. I completely understand that plans do change. You know, our way of looking at what's going on is the internet. You know, so I followed the webpage for the reconstruction of East Grand. I just didn't see any modifications to it, and maybe I missed it. But that's what I followed. And that's a lot of times what I plan our stuff for is, you know, I follow a website from any construction project. So I'm not sure. I think it was a mixture of a lot of things. Budget. I think a lot of the things ended at Jackson and, you know, Jackson, west of Jackson. It kind of went to sod, I believe. And I talked to Blake, who's the Quest engineer. He said, this is what the plan is now. So I don't know, Joe, you probably, I mean, maybe there's a better reason why it changed, I guess.
Yeah, so we did go back to review the documents. We went on the website to see what was posted on the website. the item that was on the website was a design concept, preliminary design concept. I believe it's from early 2018. Did go back to our 30% plans, or 60% plans, 90% final plans. And there were, in recollecting the design process, there was a point in time where we were originally proposing to, based on our downtown waterfront plan, to end the decorative components at Lincoln Street. And then everything over to A Street was just going to be kind of standard construction type elements, less decorative components. So there was some changes with that. There were some decorative street lighting that got extended to A Street. There was some decorative colored stamped concrete that accented some locations, particularly the radiuses east of Lincoln Street. So by and large, it's been in the plan, in the concept. That particular drawing that was posted on the website did not show, but there were some changes going on at that time which were cost prohibitive to put the colored stamped concrete in for the entire length of that stretch of roadway.
So which project was the one that the committee approved?
This one, as it was built.
As it was built.
As it was built.
Yeah, that's the construction plan.
What is as it was built?
As you see it today, is as it was planned in the 60% plans and the 90% plans, and as it was let for construction. So, you know, there were some varying design concepts, just those pictorials. But in all of the plans that were reviewed from the early stages on, the boulevard areas in that area were consistent, and I'd be interested is that if there's some areas that are only 2 feet, that shouldn't have been sod if there's only 2 feet. I think it's...
Yeah, our normal standard is 3 feet to cut off for sod. So there's...
Yeah, it's small. I showed you a picture, you know, because it surprised me. That's the thing. I kind of expected that.
It looks goofy.
It looks
like
small. Yeah, and I could probably pull a picture.
Well, we'll have to stop and
Yeah, you
take
have to
a
stop
look.
and measure and look a little bit, but and I agree. You know, some of it it's I understand the decorative. You know, like west of Lincoln or east, you know, Jackson. I think it should continue all the way to 8th. 8th, you know, or look at total of, you know, the East Grand Avenue corridor. You know, if it was consistent from one end to all the way downtown, I personally, that's a design concept that would flow better. But it is do you know what your width is outside your place?
I don't, and I think, you know, one thing that puzzled us too is the plan, and again, originally, I don't know, the original meeting when you met with the business owners was concrete. And that my husband came home, and so we've had this conversation many times as far as like, you sure it was? We pulled it up, we have the original plan and it was concrete. There was not sod in there. And I think if there would have been a discussion with the business owners where this small piece of sod is put in, I think the input would have been great as far as what that maintenance meant for the small businesses who have no other landscaping. It makes sense for, say, the library does have other maintenance and lawn and landscaping, and that makes sense. They have underground sprinkling. The Mead has that. But when, like it's in front of the funeral home, they have no other grass, no other landscaping, other than this one little strip of grass now that they have to maintain and mow. And the same with you, same with us. So we don't have underground sprinkling there. We don't even have a lawnmower or a shed, anything to mow this one little strip of sod. And all of a sudden this sod shows up, and we asked the individuals that you guys had to come work for the city were excellent, and they kept us, you know, they came in and asked us questions about things. They were very good. Because there were some other issues that came up as far as, you know, questions they had about where to end that side, because on the corner it kind of ends. But I think that we would have had some input as far as what that meant for us as a business owner. We don't have any other lawn to mow. That lawn now goes into the next lawn, and the individuals that were there like, well, you just mow it up to that point and then you just stop. It just sounds, it sounds kind of silly for a business owner. When that, the lawn that extends, that was there previously, doesn't get mowed, and it looks like it's just all weeds. And again, the point of that, we have salt going all the way up our front windows every single winter that I clean. That salt is just it's gonna trash that one little section of lawn. And then, are we responsible for resodding it? Are we, it's, if it could have been a discussion, that would have been helpful, instead of swaying from the original plan. And maybe you guys didn't even realize that it changed from the plan, and you didn't include the business owners to say, hey, what do you guys think about this? It just went forward, and we walk out there, it's like, where did that come from? So I think that's where, and now what? What do we do with it? Do we mow it? Do we maintain it? Do we? Everyone is like, all the businesses, the small businesses have that one little strip, or like, where did that come from? So.
Well, and you guys too, there's sometimes that the committee says, why weren't we told about this? But Shane.
Jennifer covered it all. I was going to reiterate what she said, and I agree with her. The small businesses trying to mow a little strip of grass doesn't make sense, and after the snow plows and the salt, what's going to be left of it?
And I like the decorative concepts. I mean, they look great.
Yeah, so
planter beds and stuff like that should be incorporated. If we're trying to be a greener city, it's where you can have a perennial, you can control it. Like once it gets onto my property, I can have sprinklers, I can, maintain it and not fight something that I had no control of, like plows.
So we did have a number of public information meetings. There were some general concept plans shown at all of those. I'm not sure who all, we had a good, generally good participation. I'm not sure, how many of the elected officials had attended those. And I think, Joe, didn't, they did vary from meeting to meeting, just the general concepts. I think
there were some changes as they worked through the design. There were changes represented.
But I think there was one concept meeting that had shown, no sod in that area, and the other two meetings that we had did show sod. So I mean, I guess what we were trying to do is just be consistent with our standard policy, and that is if there's a boulevard that's over 3 feet wide, it gets sod. That's generally how the city has done it. And during the design phases of that project, there was some discussion. I think we took a field trip the one day down 8th Street with, I think it was the beautification committee, to take a look at the, in some areas it's sod, in some areas it's unmaintained sod, in some areas it's concrete, in some areas it's asphalt, and just the variety that exists, and how the lack of curb appeal when you have that variety. So that's the.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, Joe, but while I got the thought, I wish that was brought to the Public Works Committee, because the beautification committee is not a committee, it's a council, it's the mayor's beautification.
No, but we had the plan reviews, we had.
No, I'm sorry, of the notice that we've got so many different types of boulevards in town. That's kind of interesting to know.
Oh.
Different parts of town have
Sure.
grass, different parts of town have got concrete. If we're downtown, one of the things for snow removal purposes, we actually remove the snow physically
Right.
instead of just plowing it onto the
Right.
boulevard. But that would have been something to really kind of be interesting.
Well, in this project too, to try to avoid some of the potential damage, right? In a lot of places that there is some concrete behind the curb, then the sod. So, yeah, I guess. I don't know what else to say. We can go in and replace all that sod with concrete, if that's what the city wants to do. But like I said, the project was built as it was designed, and as the design progressed over time, the design was consistent. So, I guess that's just the history of how the planning process took place and the design developed for the project, so. Yeah, I apologize if there's any confusion there.
Jim?
Is it the city ordinance or policy that anything over 3 feet on the boulevard, that's supposed to be sod? And this portion is about 20 inches.
If it's less than 3 feet, it shouldn't have been sod.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I saw this on the agenda. To my knowledge, I didn't even know which section of East Grand Avenue we were talking about. As far as reading what's on the agenda, I could have thought it was in front of the post office and the meet in. So I just found out listening this evening, so it's, I just have to say as more information that I got, actually what you can be talking about and conversing about this evening.
Yeah, I don't think that we've got enough information.
No, but it was on the agenda. The information should be there even to put it on the agenda. Information should be there so we come forward, at least that, you know, that I know, at least which block we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I apologize, because that was my agenda item.
That's why it's a total ridiculous way, this referral system, what we're doing, it is. It's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
It should go through the city clerk's office, and after that month period of time, it appears on a referral list, and then the committee decides if they want to bring it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what should take place. So this evening, to me, out of respect for, because I've driven, you know, in the last couple of days since it's been open, I have driven that. I have a bigger problem actually with the marking on the street, myself personally, the painting, or those going east, where are you gonna be? Here you've got this big triangular yellow strip of paint of what lane, where does the guy who wants to turn left onto Baker? I have a bigger problem with the painting on the street, but I understand what you're saying too. So, this is the first I was made aware of it, but in all due respect to everything that I would short of denying, but I would refer this back to next month and let's see how wide the strips of grass really are, for one thing.
Well, it looks nice, the grass.
No,
It's gonna be
how-
hard to maintain.
Yeah, but I guess how, you know, is it the width that it's supposed to be, to even have been there to start with? And, you know, from some people, part of would be to, because this was, again, supposed to be almost like a Golden Arches grand entryway to the downtown. And that became, probably became part of the discussion too, of how to make, you know, instead of all concrete, to have grass somewhere along the stretch as you were coming in, so. Because this was supposed to be opening up, just finished up our thing to go down to the riverbank and that stuff, so. Right or wrong, how people look at it or agree with it, that's what it was to be. And so that was probably part of the discussion. Yes, it is, and I agree, it will be, you know, an issue to take care of in that, but I would be, you know, I would make a motion that we look at how wide the strips are and to reassess that and to bring it back
To postpone
next
until
month.
next month.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll second that. But do you have anything further? or-
Well, maybe we could take the evening and not only look at that project, maybe there's other projects that we should look at.
It's kind of getting dark kind of early.
Yeah, I know it.
But we
Stuff
could.
miles later on with you.
Yep.
Absolutely, I would not be opposed to that. So with that being said, motion on the floor, second to postponing this item to next month's regular agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Ayes have it. Item number 4, review and consider approval of a preliminary resolution declaring the intent to levy special assessments to pave an asphalt surface on the alley immediately west of Second Avenue South between Park Avenue and Lyons Street. It actually should be Lyon Street. I don't know if I caught that or if I just cut and pasted from the referral, but I don't think that that violates the particular request.
So our objective, when we made the referral, was an attempt to try to get this in front of the committee at the special meeting. There were some questions raised from some of the residents about snow plowing in that area. We had some complaints from last year, and we're looking at using some contingent funds that we had set aside for our construction projects, and we set aside contingency projects to do if we had funds left over from our construction work. Alleys were part of that, and we did preliminary resolutions on a number of alleys within the city. This one we didn't. And in our discussions this fall, we recognized that and thought, well, if we can get this in front of the committee, we might still be able to get it paved. The issue is that our policy is that we do not plow alleys that aren't paved until the ground is frozen. And that's just because we'll just tear everything up. And generally that's not a problem. But this last spring, we had a late snowfall. That area was already thawed. It was a heavy snowfall. And most of the time, if the ground's not frozen, you don't get big snowfalls. It's not a big deal. But for the residents along this particular alley, it was a big deal. And we did go in and given the circumstances, we did some plowing. Long story short, felt that if we could try to fit this in this fall, we would try to do it. Unfortunately, with the cold weather that came and the committee activities, we weren't able to get it on the last meeting agenda. So we are looking at a preliminary resolution declaring an intent to levy special assessment, and then we would do this project likely in the spring, but as our funds allow, if we can do our regular construction projects and come in under budget, not have a lot of changes, instead of, in the past, we used to budget contingency for projects. And the last 2 years now, what we've done is we've budgeted projects to use that contingency on if it's available. For example, some of the parking lots and alleys. So that's a little bit of the background. Again, given the time, we won't be able to do it this fall. It's too cold. The ground's to prep it and surface it. But it is still appropriate to request the preliminary resolution. Once that's approved, there's a process in place then for the engineering department to notify the property owners so that they can start to plan accordingly. In this particular case, because we were potentially going to fast track this thing, we did notify the property owners in advance that we were going to talk about it. But that's not important now for this resolution request.
Paul, as far as priority of plowing, how priority would this be? Because alleys are kind of secondary, even if it's paved, even if we got paved alleyway. The reason why I bring this up is because this is a situation where this is a unique situation, historically, with this, because
there's a few places like this where it's an alley and it's their only access. So I wouldn't say it's completely unique, but it's definitely atypical where it's their only access.
And there are these people on this block, and I guess I'm very familiar because I grew up a block away. My mom still lives a block away, so I know this alleyway very well. But a lot of these properties, if not all of them, had access to Second Avenue for their primary driveway. And now, because of changes made with Second Avenue and whatever else, was it the city or was it the state that removed their driveway access?
It was part of the state project, but the city supported it.
Just regardless.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a situation where there's an undue hardship placed on these people, whether it is, whether it isn't. That would be a planning commission type of decision, type of a thing, but it's definitely a change of what they're used to. But if this is a case where now alleyways still only have the secondary snow plowing and other activities, I would like to try and make this designated as an actual street or right of way that way. Not necessarily with full curb and gutter and everything else, but the fact that the designation, so that if any of these people need to, much like everybody else, need to go to work, that it isn't a secondary access to these people's homes, it's their primary access. So I don't know if that makes sense with you guys.
Well, we wouldn't normally put a curb and gutter in the alley anyway.
The right of way, it's only 10 feet. I mean, there's, even if you pave
have
it,
a
there's.
standard design for alley, is it
Sure.
12 feet, 16 feet?
Well, this particular one, I think that the right of way is only 10 feet.
Yeah, 10 or 12.
So if we went
Huh?
edge to edge, it's only 10 feet of pavement. So there's, it's an alley.
Do we have a rate established for that paving?
We did submit to the property owners an estimate.
Comes out to about $475 to $600 per 100 foot
Is what?
lot. About $475 to $600 per 100-foot lot. That's what the price would come out to.
You haven't had
for
a,
assessment.
you haven't had a hearing yet.
So things are done a little bit differently than what you were used to. Instead of setting a rate in advance, what the city does now is the preliminary resolution notifies the intent to assess and provides the property owners then with a general estimate. And then the final resolution is when the actual costs are known.
But you
So-
gotta have a
Preliminary.
hearing to let the people determine whether they wanna do the project or they don't wanna do the project. You have to give them an opportunity to be heard. Then, after the project is complete, then you have the final resolution
Correct.
with all the costs.
That's correct.
So what I'm saying is you want us to pass a preliminary resolution, but then before you do the work, you're going to have a public hearing so that people can be heard.
Yes.
Okay.
That's in my district, and there was 2 other alleys in my district that was paved, and they look great. They really look great. The concern with this alley is the elevation. On the east side of that alley, there's 3 garages lower than the alley. And on the west side, I think there's only 1 garage, which I think might be equal to the alley. Well, that's an alley that's gravel, so in the rain, it'll absorb the water. But if you have 3 garages on the east side, that it won't be porous. And I guess in the design, I think you have to consider the garages on the east side and to make sure that the drainage is such that those residents won't have any difficulty. And that's a concern I have. And I'd like that suggestion if you could rank that as a street now so it gets plowing until this is resolved. I think that would be good because that is the only access that they have. But those 2 issues I see.
So do you want to do the same with all the other alleys that are the people's only access as well?
As far as status, so that there's no plowed right away, absolutely. Because if I live there, I would want to make sure, well, I got 4-wheel drive, I can take care of myself, but if it's an elderly person or someone else with some type of limitations, absolutely. I want to make sure that, because if there are other alleys that are second driveways, that's more of a
Convenience, that
convenience.
Let the people decide whether they
Well,
want
Yeah, yeah.
Could I propose then that we, just at some point in the next month, develop a referral to review the snow and ice control policy?
Absolutely. I'll do that, yeah.
it. We could have the public hearings during the winter time and save it for spring.
Exactly.
I'd agree with that, and also I'd like to research and go back and see what we did with, how we did the alley and actually kitty corner from what we're talking about. Be off of
North of the expressway?
Which one?
North of the expressway, east of Second Avenue.
All behind.
Same situation.
behind
You just see,
Henderson's,
yeah, you just see what we did, how we resolved it, because we did have, so the driveway
A lot of
was
houses on
sloped
that
and
one.
banked on however which way, because there was a lot of discussion that took place on that.
Yeah, all the houses on the east side of that
We
alley
had,
there.
there were issues that were there, and we did come to a resolution. If everybody totally agreed, I don't know about maybe, but, you know, they agreed, I think, for the most part, that we came to a resolution on how we resolved it. And so that may be for a reference point to look back, and, I mean, that's several years ago that we did that, and so that's why off the top of my head, I'm gonna have to ask you guys to look back on what the records are. But I know that that was, a lot of discussion took place on that, so.
I got another question.
Yeah.
If you pave an alley, do you put any base underneath that pavement, or you just pave over the existing material?
So the two alleys that we did over north and south of Chestnut Street were built on packing dirt, and we removed the packing dirt there and put 7 inches of road base underneath that. Over there, that one there, depending upon what you do, you know, the profile is such that it drains to Park and it drains to Lion Street, and
Well, if you put base under, it should last, and the alley doesn't get that traffic, it should last a little time.
I guess all I was gonna say is there's a fair, you know, we've been using crushed blacktop to patch in the alleys the last 5-6 years. So there's a fair amount of structure there already, you know, but if we go through and change the profile of it, obviously that material is probably gonna go away. And so you'd have to do something different there then.
With it being a narrow 10-foot alleyway, is there issues with plowing with a front end loader? Is that what?
We don't plow alleys with the front end loader, we plow them with 1-ton trucks with 10-foot plows on the front.
Okay.
Which is why we can't treat them like a street. You know, you can't, if you're going by with a grader with the wing, it won't fit down the alley. So, you know, we have a different route to do those.
There's typically 2 people assigned to plowing alleys. You know, the west side has more alleys than the east side does. The majority, I think there's 9 alleys on the east side, and 8 of those 9 alleys are paved, so they can get plowed. There's more than that, because that whole area north of Sandlot Park is all alleys, but those are technically numerated streets, I guess. But we plow them with the 1-ton truck, and you virtually go one way and then clean up going the other way. Then the next time you alternate it, just so that, you know, person that lives on the east side of the road isn't getting 2 feet of snow every single time because they're getting 10 feet of snow, and the other person's only getting 2 feet of snow, you know. So the problem is that, you know, those persons are coming in at 7 o'clock, you finish plowing snow at 2 o'clock, and then, you know, the alley maybe have been plowed already, but the end gets filled in because the grader or the loader goes by, you know, 3 hours later or 2 hours later, and so then the end sometimes gets cleaned up the next day versus being cleaned up that day, so, which is consistent with how the current policy reads.
Thank you.
Just to reiterate, or Joel, again, what you said for staff to look at and come back with.
Referral to review the snow and ice policy.
Just to,
Yeah. I'll make a note of that, and we can catch that when we talk about referrals at the end here.
That'd be the way we handle this for now.
All right. Any action on the preliminary resolution, or we'll postpone that until next month? Sounds like we can't pay it anymore.
Why don't we include a motion that the engineering department over the winter time take a look at all the alleys, and we pass a preliminary resolution, and we go to a public hearing and let the people decide whether they want it or not. If they don't want it,
I think we did, but actually all of them that we looked at potentially paving this past year into next year, we did. There was
These already
3 or 4 or 5 off the top of my head, and this was not one of them.
Okay, that's good then.
So just to follow up, so the preliminary the resolution has 2 purposes. One is so that the city staff notifies the public of the city's intent to eventually do a project there. The other is so that I can instruct staff to start spending some time on design and budgeting and preparations. So again, there's no rush on this, but at the same time, it's on the agenda. And I think it'd be beneficial if we could move forward.
Okay, to move it along with what the referral is, so an ice removal. I'd move for a preliminary resolution, the city declaring intent to levy special assessments to pave an asphalt surface on the alley immediately west of, get the right wording in there,
Second.
the streets there, between Park and Lions. That's the motion.
Just for a little bit of clarification, will the residents receive another letter in the spring prior to any activity?
Yeah, so we'll send them notice if the council approves moving the preliminary resolution forward. The engineering department will then give notification that, hey, we're looking at the project. So yes, there'll be notification given to all the property owners that we're looking
So
at
they
this
have
as
a
a
chance
project.
to meet.
Did you have a
Either
second?
either accept it or deny it, or ask questions, or whatever.
Did you second that?
Yeah.
Do you have anything more as being the?
Just the
committee?
design.
Okay.
Just the design.
With that, there's a motion on the floor, a second. Oh, Jim, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm somewhat confused. I am for, was the intent to levy special assessments. If I'm not mistaken, the driveways that came out onto 2nd Avenue, which was their primary access to their garages, were taken out by state and possibly the city. So that made the alleyway the primary access to these garages. Is that correct?
Correct.
Then why would you levy a special assessment? Because it's not the homeowner's fault that their access was taken away. There should be no levy to the homeowners to put that alleyway in.
Yeah, Jim, that was one thing that I do know was talked about with the homeowners when this alleyway project was talked about earlier, when the engineering department offered, what do you call it, your walkthrough meeting type of thing. And I did come down to that meeting. I was one of the few of these public works projects that I was able to come down for 5 minutes and kind of check out. And that was one of the things that the engineering department, I know Joe Agstead was there, I don't remember if you were there, Mr. Terry, but I know that that was discussed at that time. And through the correspondence that I had with this particular referral here, although I don't want to say it shouldn't be talked about, but the concerns were the elevations with the property. And one of them, I assume this is what you're gonna say, they are getting an improvement. There's an improvement that's actually happening in front of their property.
Okay. Well,
And I was just going to mention too that everybody might not also realize that as a part of the compensation that those property owners along 2nd Avenue South received, I mean, they all received compensation because they lost an access. And they did get,
I didn't know that.
they did get paid for that. So
Okay.
And they could bring that up at that hearing too.
Sure.
You can discuss it.
Yeah, and they could even hire an attorney, say that this is, you know, an illegal taking, whatever, but that's not on our scope with this particular issue. So with that, did a motion pass? No. Motion on the floor, second, to approve preliminary resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll go on to item number 5. Review and discuss request from Wood County to modify the existing parking along the east side of Market Street between Avon Street and Baker Street to add an ADA stall and restrict the remaining parking stalls to delivery vehicles only. Is anybody, I hate to rush through something on this and have someone sit through, but does everybody kind of understand what this is? If this is a no-brainer, I mean, it almost seems like a no-brainer to me. Is there anybody that would speak in opposition to this? What is staff recommendation to
Well,
approve?
yeah, so you just run through it real quick here. So there's 2 accessible parking spaces currently on the front of the courthouse. The remaining 5 spaces are signed for 25-minute parking. There's a couple options, and I guess we'll see, if Lieutenant Pearson here thinks that would work with what they're looking at, based on some just real basic counts, time of day counts, just to see kind of what passenger cars, what people are parking in the ADA spots, what the deliveries were, and some of those things might be changing in the future, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but one of the options was to modify the parking to meet the additional ADA needs, which would be provide 4 or 5 stalls for passenger cars, limited time parking, 1 to 2 stalls for ADA, and 1 stall for exclusive deliveries, which seem to meet the current demand that's out there. I'm not sure if the current demand is changing at the county, if things are getting redirected to the
Yeah,
front.
the main reason why we looked at that is with the reconstruction of the building, we're having everybody for a single point entrance exit now at the courthouse. So everybody will be using the west entrance of the courthouse at all times now. That's the only entrance and exit for public. So with the 2 ADA spots out front, the next closest one would be around the south side of the building, and all the other ones are across the street. So looking at that need, we thought about moving 1 to 2 more ADA spots in the front of the building, and then with the remaining, if we did get 2 more ADA spots, the remaining 3 spots would be for deliveries only at that time.
I don't see a problem with any of the requests that the county has. I don't know about you guys. I mean, the courthouse is your guys' building, although it's our street. I mean, you guys know your customers better than we do, so.
Yeah, so nothing would change. It'd be the same amount of spots, same amount of access for vehicles. It would just be who would be able to access those spots.
So I do have one question though. If all those spots are ADA, then there's no legal way to have that as your delivery drop site.
4 out of the 7 would be ADA.
Okay.
And then
So there'd be no general public parking in front of the courthouse at all?
correct.
Yeah, there's a big vacant
I
triangle.
don't know that would serve the public well.
I don't know that I can't agree with that one, I don't think, off the top of my head anyway. With no public park.
So it'd be 3 of them for deliveries only?
3 parking.
But that's right out in front, because there's still county parking on the south end of the building,
South
right?
end, north end.
The north end across Baker.
Yeah, let's make sure we're all talking the same direction here.
If you can bear with me for a minute, let me see if I can make some technology work here real quick, and we can just put this up.
That's the area. That's the only, yeah.
Yeah, it's just everything right in front.
That's the direct front, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about, yeah.
There's a Prospect Street, no Market Street.
Yeah, great.
So there's parking in here
Well, yeah, there's parking, it's just that there's not all the general public picking up and
And what they're changing is that you don't have access to different parts anymore. It's only this west access. So if someone with a disability has to park way out here in the winter time, you know, it's changing it up so that someone that, you know, has a hard time, someone like me, I'll park, you know, in the other parking lot.
How many deliveries are there?
And
Yes, at the same time? Not necessarily during the course
and
of the day, and it's hard to say, I'm sure of that.
Right, it depends. I mean, we do have FedEx, UPS, and Speedy that come by at least once a day. UPS is usually there twice a day, once for delivery and once for pickup. And then at lunch, it can differ with food deliveries coming to the courthouse. I know the signs would say delivery, on the agenda it says delivery vehicles only. The signs could just say deliveries only, so if you just have to run in and deliver a payment to the clerk of court, it's not specified that way. I think the main reason we're looking at it is just to get more of the handicap accessible spots up front, instead of having to cross the street or come around the side of the building to access the courthouse. And I'm not gonna say right, wrong, or indifferent, but that little triangle piece on the very north of those parking spots, I know a lot of our delivery vehicles have been parking there, so.
Yeah, and I think if there was a desire to modify something and add potentially a large delivery parking area, you know, it would require some rework of some curb and gutter. But that area could be modified all the way up to that decorative light pole. And there's still ample room ahead of the, you know, so long term, if something doesn't work or whatever. You know, when we looked at this as staff, our concern was, well, public street is generally not real suitable for handicap parking, because there's still a curb there. You know, it isn't, you can sign it that way, but it's really not helpful other than it gets it close to the building. And when we did a short, again, this is just we asked some of the, you know, some of the employees from Wood County to just, you know, unscientifically take a look, make some counts, and give us some notes. And you know, it seems that the 1 or 2 ADA stalls currently is more than sufficient. But if, you know, if other ADA stalls are going away, or if there's, I mean, I don't think anyone could come in any of the other doors in a wheelchair already because there's steps, right?
Right, the only other access for like a wheelchair ramp would be the jail entrance.
Yeah, so those entrances, the other entrances that are being closed off to the public aren't accessible now. So, you know, I guess the suggestion is, if down the road there's a determined need that there's more ADA parking necessary, I think it'd be better to revisit it than to, because a lot of people use that front entrance for a short-term item. They need to go in and see the clerk of courts, or you know, for whatever reason. What is it, 20 minutes out there, 40?
25 minutes.
25 minutes. You know, before we eliminated that access for the general public, and it may need to be eliminated, you know, I think that option 1 is a good compromise to start with, which isn't to say in 2 months, if we find that it's not suitable, we couldn't revisit it. Rather than to pretty much get rid of all of the public parking in front of the courthouse, with the exception of deliveries and
what were the couple different options?
So the first option would primarily just convert one of the stalls to be exclusive for deliveries. So you'd have 4 or 5 stalls for passenger cars, or 1 or 2 stalls for ADA, and then 1 just for deliveries. The other option would be to look at developing an exclusive drop-off area a little bit to the north of the existing parking stalls, so a little bit of curb work and pavement. And of course, the third option is to leave it as it is option.
I'd rather not do any physical changes until we know exactly what we want to do. I would rather, because we can always change the parking whenever we want, how we want, as long as we sign it. Unfortunately, people become accustomed to something, but we've changed things in the past. But, Sully?
Why do you need that street anyway? Why don't you vacate it and make it a parking lot? I know it'd screw up your circle, but.
You know, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah, Market Street, I mean, you can come all the way down to.
It doesn't service anybody, but.
It only
wants to take a
services
shortcut.
the courthouse.
I mean, the shortcut, yeah.
Or you could put angle parking in there too.
Well, I think you need to take a real close look at it. The geometry that exists there, just looking at it, I don't think you'd facilitate a parking lot with that strip.
Make it a one-way and have parking on both sides or whatever.
There's different options, yeah. But angle parking, you could, if I look at that picture, I bet you could put some.
That really screwed up people going around the roundabout.
So what do we currently have?
We have 7 spots.
Yep.
2 of them are EDA and 5 are 25-minute parking.
Well, committee, I'd either recommend that we leave as is. Or if anything, we just take, that we could remove one that's, of those, what, 5 spots you said, Joe?
Yep.
That would add another for ADA.
Add one more.
Not add one more, we subtract from one, but at this point in time, I guess personally, my recommendation, I think to the committee, or what I would do is just leave it as is.
Well, that's the one challenging thing because the information that we got, and is this from the county or was that what the city measured?
So I had just asked a few of the county employees if they could just look out the window every couple hours, so we have dates and times, just to give us a ballpark, what are we looking at here? Are there, do we see handicap stickers or handicap plates in cars so that maybe we don't have enough handicap parking, right? So that was one of the objectives. The other was really to try to evaluate if, the one difference is with deliveries. Well, if they were delivering to any of the side doors before, they can't. If they were delivering to the loading dock before, their new security isn't going to allow that. So the delivery vehicles are really going to need to do their drops on Market, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we looked at it, that was where we really wanted to recommend, look, I think we've got ADA covered. We don't really have the exclusive delivery area covered. But then to be able to maintain some front door access for, someone who's maybe got a walker or isn't quite as mobile but doesn't have a handicap permit, they can still park in front of the courthouse to do their business and to do that legally. So that's really why we came up with the recommendation for
for option one. I do think there's an option four, and that's as the deputy suggested, and that's, you know, with 3 or 4 handicap spots and 1 or 2 delivery stalls. I think that's the other option is you know, what he's proposing.
So wait, say that last sentence one more time, Joe.
Well, it was for what the county was requesting
Yeah.
specifically.
What was that?
Was 4 handicap?
4 handicap and then the 3 for deliveries, which if a delivery van can fit into one, that's why we're thinking maybe 2 other vehicles could probably fit in 3 spots.
So that is feasible?
Yeah, I think if it can physically fit there, it's just that for the general public, if I think pretty much anyone in this room wanted to go to the courthouse, you're parking in the parking lot.
That takes
So
away
you
any.
mean an ADA vehicle could park in a regular passenger car parking spot. Delivery vehicle could park in a regular vehicle parking spot, which couldn't go the other way. A regular passenger car would be excluded. They couldn't park in the ADA or the delivery spots. And option 4 there wouldn't be any legal parking there for them.
Right, so I mean, somebody who's got some mobility issues but doesn't have a handicap sticker or tag, all of a sudden now they're not able to go and park pretty close to the front doors if they need to, right? So again, that's why we recommended option 1 as a compromise, and you know, obviously, if the committee chooses to do that, and in a short period of time, we hear from the county that, look, this isn't working, we can come back and revisit. There's some costs associated, though, with punching in handicap signs and things like that. So I'd rather add more than do a whole bunch of them and then slowly remove them if we found that it wasn't.
Is that what you're recommending, go with option 1?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Any other concerns, questions? Motion on the floor to approve option 1, second on the floor as well. All those in favor say
Yeah.
aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Just so we specify that how many, because it says 4 or 5 as passenger cars, 1 to 2 ADA, so.
it's up to you guys. You guys are the ones that made the motion the second.
Based on the comments I've heard, it would probably be four passenger stalls, 2 ADA, and 1
I'll agree with
exclusive
okay,
delivery.
that's, I'll,
Will that work for the county right now?
Sure.
Awesome. How about this? Are you the one that's kind of going over the security type? Are you heading the thing?
Yeah, I think so.
How about in like 4 months or 6 months or whatever an appropriate time period is, if you, or even shorter, if you do get concerns, send it to the committee's way, or send it to the clerk's office, or send it to me, the committee chairperson, and when we can try and remedy anything moving forward with that. So motion on the floor, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We will go on to item number 6. Review and consider approval of a service agreement with MSA to perform a conceptual study on 1 mile of Crick Ponds. This referral was by Mr. Eichstadt.
So, the scope of work.
I think where we had a figure on that.
For a price? Was there a price on there?
Yes.
Or you were gonna have one for the
Here's
committee?
copies. It is in the packet. We asked that they break it up into 2 phases. Primary reason is that the total cost includes we wanted to create some mechanisms so that we could, after the first phase, we could judge and see where the property owners are at. You know, if we've been able to answer these critical questions with the proposal, or with the study, that would get us to a point that we could say in some confidence that we could move forward into the second phase and spend additional funds. So the first phase is identified at $8,700. The second phase is $5,900. And the hope is that the conceptual design would be able to answer those critical questions to satisfy both city and residents along that waterway, and hopefully move forward with arriving at easement agreements with those property owners.
Is this something that it's gonna be looked at from 16th Street all the way down? I guess, because I don't know if this was, is this a new, did you see one of these before, is this new? I didn't.
I was just looking to see if there's,
Yeah, I was
some's in
trying-
what we got.
I was trying
I don't
to-
know if all is or
I
not.
don't believe it was in the packet. I think it was in the
No.
referral documents.
I did see the
Background,
cost
or-
on there.
That's, yeah.
Is it on? Okay. So are we?
8,759 is that what you said?
Yeah, that's phase, yeah, 87 and 59, yep.
So are we just looking at the ponds in terms of for stormwater management that way and trying to get an easement so that we have the ability to use those ponds as a stormwater detention pond or retention? What's the difference, detention or retention pond or whatever?
So it'd be a detention pond. There's an outlet to a retention pond. The only outlet is basically infiltration to the soil, but, so it is a detention pond. But yeah, so the ultimate goal is the city would like to move forward with it. Some property owners would like to move forward with it. I don't believe there was any of the 9 properties, I believe, the property owners. We got 7 responses back from our sort of just gauge to see where property owners were at. 2 of them are in favor of the project, 5 are maybes, there's 0 against the project. Again, we didn't hear back from 2 property owners, but
Can you briefly explain, if it's okay,
Yeah.
why that was important?
sure, yep. So, in order for the city to utilize the ponds for stormwater credits, we need to have legal access to the pond. And that's where the easement agreement comes in.
And this is a DNR rule.
Yeah, there's a string that's attached to utilizing it for stormwater, is that we have legal access. And so the easement agreement would provide that legal access. There's questions from the property owners that we aren't able to answer those questions until we get a little bit into it. Initially, the proposal that we asked for was just a blanket full $15,000 rough proposal. We said, well, can we break it up into 2 phases so that at the end of the first phase, we can then again judge and see where the property owners are at. If maybe we've got consensus, property owners are in agreement, and then we wouldn't have to necessarily expend that second phase without any certainty. So that's the hope.
If the property owners don't all agree to participate, then there's no benefit of the city to proceed further, because the city doesn't have control unless it has control around that whole area. And then part of the other issue is one of liability and eventually cost, and that is that dam that exists right now at 2 Mile is not permitted by the DNR, and it's privately owned. And so there's and it's, in the beginning stages of failure. There's been some problems with it. And so there's a potential win-win for the property owners, where if the city could get a lot of stormwater credits if it was able to maintain that, and save millions in other stormwater treatment that we would otherwise have to do. City would then have responsibility to maintain and license a small dam structure, but the property owners would have the same rights and privileges essentially that they have now, without those liabilities or the uncertainty that the other property owners, one property owner that owns that dam, and if it fails, that pond's gone, and so is their waterfront. And so it has the potential to be a win-win to really sustain the conditions that are there for the property owners that enjoy having the water by their house, and help the city save a lot in millions in future stormwater management development.
They're just going to be looking at the ponds
Correct.
Yeah, specific to
Is
the
this
area.
something that we have to pass tonight? This looks like a lot of stuff to take a look at.
I mean, it's not time sensitive.
Have you looked at not only the ponds, but the creek itself?
Further upstream from there?
Yeah, I didn't see this today, so I went out there and looked at the creek. It's a mess.
So it's a little off topic, but we have looked at those areas. Those areas are all privately owned. That creek exists on
Yeah.
private property.
Yeah.
And there have been a number of requests for the city to dredge it, thinking that that's the solution. In practicality, that's not the solution. The problem with that area is it has been dredged. There's not sufficient water flow through there. It's essentially groundwater elevation. There's a little bit of pitch, a little bit moves, but
Well,
the problem's
it's restricted by pipe
no,
Huh?
but it's
at 8th Street, isn't it?
no. There's a long history there, as you probably well know, of flooding, and so upstream, it's diverted in the storm sewer to other locations to prevent some of the flooding that happened in that area. The problem is that it's deeper than what it naturally would be because it had been dredged because, well, gosh, it's got algae growth and it just compounds the problem. It's stagnant water. It doesn't get a chance to flow through. In that particular area, a more suitable project would be a stream restoration project. And that may not be desirable to some of the property owners either, because if they want kind of that constant water behind them, that's not natural for that area, right? Having some rocks and other obstructions in that stream flow to help consume the bacteria in the water and get rid of some of that algae. But that's a little bit of a different project because, again, the city doesn't control any of that. That's all private property right to the center of the stream there.
The city doesn't have a right of, to go in and clean that stream or
I
to
think
maintain it?
if it's restricting storm flow or flow upstream, I think then the city does. But I'm pretty sure that, and the city might if all of the property owners agree and it's a project, right? But otherwise, no. I don't believe the city would have any authority to go in and maintain that because it's not, it's all private property and it's not obstructing other flow.
I don't know, as far back as I can remember, I've been up and down and in that creek. And when I was little, I remember there was plenty of flowing water and there was plenty of crayfish and rocks, and that's what we used to do when I was little. And so it flowed a lot better than it does now. A lot better.
Saw you were well, and that's interestingly, because that was 20, 25, 30 years ago, behind my mom's house, where we had kind of a swamp there, and we haven't had any water there in the last 20 years, and now we're having groundwater issues in different places and everything else, and especially kind of storms with a lot of rainwater at a very brief period of time. With these ponds, and I'm not against it, and it was kind of interesting because I got a call from a resident about that after did you meet with one or more people on that, and I think that one of the challenges is that when you get a letter in the mail from the city saying, hey, we want to pull an easement, sometimes it gets scary and different things. So, and that was one of the things that the resident mentioned was that, you were very, very polite and very knowledgeable in explaining to what the situation was. So I really appreciate that.
But that's good to know that no one was absolutely opposed to it. So just that advocacy moving forward with it. If it isn't time sensitive, if the committee, you know, is concerned about it, then we could potentially postpone it until next time. But if it's a case where we are, and I know that that's what we're trying to do, the whole goal of this is to get stormwater credits, that can save us. There's very few places, especially with so much asphaltic surface coming in. You know, we pride ourselves with businesses moving in and paving everything. But the problem is if we don't have permeable soils for that rainwater to go down, it's got to go somewhere. And this is one major avenue that it goes down. And if we're able to get stormwater credits for this, it can. It not only could it benefit, but we could also get the stormwater utility revenue and address this or other places in town as well. And this phase helps answer a lot of the questions that the property owners still have. So as far as being that public advocate, by segregating this into 2 phases, if we do this next phase, if the council would approve that, then we go back to the property owners, we can answer some of the questions that they had. That's what this helps do. And if at that time it's positive, well, then we could consider, okay, let's look at doing the second phase then and proceeding. And if not, well, maybe we've got to table it for a while or do some more education or negotiate. But at the end of the day, this project only happens as a partnership. There's nobody forcing anyone.
And there's some help available from the state on this or not? No.
But that's where we're trading credits. We do get credits for it. We don't get cash per se, but we get that stormwater credit ability with it. Right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for approval of the service agreement with MSA to perform a conceptual study on the 1 Mile Creek ponds.
Motion on the floor, do I hear a second? For approval of both A and B, or approval of first phase and second phase, or contingency on second phase if first phase is successful, or both altogether?
What's both all together?
Yeah, quite frankly, we won't go to phase 2 without.
Right, sure.
That just wouldn't make sense, so.
So motion on the floor to approve both of them. Both of them, yeah. And I can second that too. I don't have a problem seconding it. So you don't have to have it. Yeah,
I want to read this.
Exactly. So I'll motion on the floor, second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Voting in the negative is Mr. Virginski. 2-1, ayes have it. We will move on to item number 7. Review and consider approving storm sewer options for 21st Place. I know we talked about this in the past. And Mr. Blazer, I know you wanted to have it on the agenda one more time.
Yeah, there's a couple of residents here and they can speak to it also, but I guess I'm in favor and I'd like to see the committee push forward and connect the system to our system and pull that water out of there. And the residents can speak on it, on their issues and their thoughts and concerns here.
How much effect are you guys still having over in your area there?
Well, the water's finally gone down because my neighbor stopped pumping. So my issue is that part, but it's also my water, okay? Because I have, my toilets look scummy after 3 days of cleaning them. I clean them every 3rd day. We have to go in and clean them. I clean them so much, my porcelain's already scratched on my toilets. I've been there 17 years, and the water was good. We were blowing all that water off into that pond across the road, but now we haven't blown off all summer, and now our water's getting bad again. Now, I'm not the only one. I know the other people have the same situation there, but right now, if I go to my bathroom and I pull my look in there, there's a regular brown ring around there, and it grows. And I clean it, and it comes back. So there's something that's got to be done with my water over there. And if we keep blowing it into the pond across the road, which then goes to her house because it filtrates into the ground, and which we had that big problem with all the water this year. Otherwise, I never ever had water in my house, and I had water this year. So, I mean, all year we blow water off. So now Now, this year we didn't, and it finally dried up on it, but I need to do something with my water again, because it's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to worry about cleaning my toilets every other day. It's just not right.
So we've got kind of two different things here. One of them is your water is stagnant because it's not looped, because 21st Place just has a water main running out front.
Exactly.
And then the second thing is because to sustain that, because the water table is so high, in the past, they blow out the water like they've done in the past so that you guys have got clean
Right.
water that is going. But because of that amount of water that's getting taken out of the water system, it's potentially filling up the groundwater in that area.
Right, that's what I believe. I mean, like I said, I watch it now. I can go over there and I can see the ponds down. So I'm assuming that she's gonna be drying up over where they're at too.
Because we
they're-
still have our pumps going.
So they're through the woods there. But it would be just nice if we could get, right now I'm gonna have to call them to see if they can blow water again, because I gotta get my water. I mean, I don't know if they need to blow 3,000 gallons a day like they do. Can they blow it twice a day? I don't know. But something, I mean, you go down there all winter, there's water in the pond. And that's just from us blowing the water off outside there.
So what was your kind of thought on that?
I'm not the engineer, but obviously, and I don't know if we can do it, and it's been talked about forever, but, there's no way to loop it unless you go down Grove to 16th, correct? Which, it's not city there, and then, the other option, or the other issue is, what Brian was talking about is, everything, all the street surface water goes to the storm retention pond there, and if it should be connected with the rest of, and whatever reasons the developer didn't do it, but it should be connected with our stormwater sewer system.
I mean, if we could blow the water off on the end, at least it's going into the sewer, we don't have to worry about it going into that pond all the time, then we won't have to worry about getting looped. But, I mean, the water was a lot better than what it is right now.
There's a real good chance that even if it was looped on Grove there, you would still have an issue, because there just isn't enough water customers on that particular L shape that you would have going east on Grove behind the hockey rink and then looping into 21st Place. So the remedy is going to be with what we do with that water that is coming out of the water system. But can we put it into the sanitary? If we put clear water into the sanitary sewer, that will really have adverse effects for our wastewater treatment plant. And treating clear water is not really something that we need to be doing. So putting it into a storm sewer system is, and I know that it was suggested that the curb elevation is not the right height. We would need to have some type of grinder pump system or whatever else, but is there some way that we can create something to divert that water to storm off of 16th Street there, or any other way, or is that just a shell of an area? Because we gotta get rid of the water somehow, but what is the best mechanism of doing that? Because we're talking about two different things. We're talking about groundwater elevation, but then we are also talking about we need to have the blow off from the drinking water, so that it doesn't get scummy, so it doesn't sit there and stagnate.
I think it's about 1,700 feet uphill to the next storm sewer, and I don't think that next storm sewer has additional capacity, because it's already at the top. When it's designed, the watershed's considered for that design. Now, I haven't analyzed it, so I can't say with absolute certainty, but I can say, with professional confidence that it would be very expensive to try to pump that water, for a storm sewer system up and west 1,600 feet, and then upsize the receiving storm sewer system to be able to manage it. I mean, it would require it would require an engineering study for our staff to do.
What is the topography north of where that pond is? Is it wooded area north of that, does Lincoln High School own part, or do we have, where is that? Somewhere the compost site has gotta be through there, right?
Yeah, so straight north of there.
Straight north.
Isn't,
There's
What?
actually 2 ponds there.
there is, was there a suggestion at one of the last, not the latest meeting, but because we didn't really talk about it, but a couple months ago, 5, 6 months ago, was there a suggestion that there could be a longer hose put on that and taken further north? I don't, something. did
Is
I
there
read
another
that?
place where you could dump it instead of dumping it into that pond?
That's the
That's the
problem.
thing right
Yeah.
there. Because that pond fills up. The other pond doesn't get any water in it. When you're pumping into this one all the time, that one's always got water in it. One on the end maybe might have an inch or 2 or a couple inches, but the other one always, you'll have 2 feet of water in there.
And the shallower one is on the north side then? Or
I
further
think they're
north?
both about the same. The deeper one is on the north end. The shallower one's on the south end.
Sure.
And I don't know why, but that one seems to never have half the water of what we get on the north end there.
Is it just the elevation difference?
So there is quite a bit of a difference
Yeah,
there. If
Mr.
you drive up and down there, you can see it. There's actually, it goes
Yeah.
like that through there.
Because Mr. Bemke never had water, I talked to
No.
him, he doesn't
No,
have
he doesn't
water,
have-
and you guys, right here on the north end.
Right, I'm on the north end.
So that's where it's coming down to Grove in the future or whatever.
So I'm hoping that it stays down because we had a heck of a mess there last year, or this year. We all did.
Well, that's what they said, I believe it was it March that you guys came last time, or
Mhm.
whatever? And I had called the utility, because they have that test well in the corner of 20th and 2 Mile, and he said in the test well that the groundwater elevation was up 3 feet higher than what the average was.
Yeah, and last month or month and a half or whenever it was, I contacted Water and Light, and they said that progressively throughout the summer that the highest levels of water, groundwater that we've had ever on record of the utility.
Well, and I think, what did it say, that we're 1 inch away for the season average of being above?
Where do they live, Terry? Joe?
You know where 21st place is?
Here's,
Yeah.
the north end of 21st place here. So if I zoom back a little bit. So there's 16th Street.
North Pond is the one that has water.
Just north of that is,
right
on
now
the left-hand
it's
side is where the hockey
decided
facility
down.
is. But
Yeah,
right
okay, right there.
Yep. I was
Football
actually
and
calling to
football
see if they
field.
could do something, but
And where do they live
I
now?
don't want to affect everybody else, but.
right in the
Where all the
bottom
green
right.
spots on the right side are.
Kind of these areas.
That's where they live.
I live
That's-
right here.
right.
That's
This
20th
is my house
place,
right
right,
here.
yeah.
And this guy on the end, he had a lot of water this year in his house.
There's a pond back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ponds are right here. There's one right here, and then the other one's over here. And I don't even know, how a house could even get put in there with that pond being there like that. It's very much from the pond to the road, so I don't know how that one will even get sold.
So then one of the questions is, what if we dig a deeper pond, but it isn't the fact that the pond isn't holding it, it's the groundwater saturation that we're dealing with.
Right, and I don't think we could get a permit for a high-capacity well just to try to maintain groundwater elevation. I don't
Well,
think
where
we
would
can
we
get a
go
permit.
with the water too? Because that's what we're kind of,
Right, well, if you try to develop a storm sewer system, you gotta pump all that anyway, so.
Or
It'd be very expensive.
We're gonna have to extend the storm sewer system, redo it all the way towards East Street.
Right.
Who owns the property north of 21st Place right there?
School
On that?
district
The school district owns that stuff?
and Cooks.
Yep.
And who? School
Cooks.
district, didn't somebody say?
Cook,
Oh,
K-O-C-H.
yeah.
They own the property to the east of there, I think.
Yes.
And you keep going, there's the.
So that's school.
Yeah.
They have to go quite a ways to pump it north.
So that's the school also.
To the pond.
Well, so that flushing device has been in since maybe 2010, I think. And so it's been in for quite a while. I mean, it's
That's
it's
all
a
chlorine
it's a
water.
factor, but
That's
I
what I'm saying, they
think
can't be
groundwater is the
ground
primary
because that's really not.
If, if you look at the photograph here, that pond is dry,
They did,
Yeah, that was approved.
and it generally is.
And this is
That
a
means massive water
2015
to blow off.
aerial.
Right. So he's only 3,000 gallons a day it blows off. So that's a lot of
That's
water.
where the highway's
So maybe
from.
we could slow it down.
3,000 gallons.
Yeah.
3,000
Yeah.
gallons isn't much.
And that's
I know,
what the
but
problem
when
is
every
because
day
water
for,
main is not
you
moved
know,
around.
52
So the
weeks.
water is stagnant
Yeah,
in
a lot
that
of water
city
sitting there
sewer,
someplace,
or
but-
side.
I mean, it'd be nice if we
Well,
could
there
get
isn't enough
the
users.
water,
on
I guess if we got a water situation,
They're-
if
they're
we're
the only
draining in
ones.
there so much, then we
So
don't
if
have
you,
so much water in that
the
pond.
closest way to loop it would be south of the hockey facility, but there's no one really, you know. customers
And even if it's looped,
Yeah, there's not.
Are they
enough
ever
water.
gonna do anything with the ballpark behind me, or to the, you know, they're supposed to be doing something with the ballpark there someday? Is that where they'd come in with the water, or take care of that for us there?
That would be a good question, but that would be a good suggestion.
But the
Yeah.
problem is that it's still, you're gonna have seasonal use of the water, and it's not necessarily gonna fix the problem with the water.
I know, but you're
Unless
gonna have
they
to put
use-
sewer and stuff in there, aren't
Unless
you?
they
doing it?
use city water to sprinkle, which I doubt they would, because they would just drill a well. If they got 9 feet to groundwater, they put
in a point.
put in a well for sprinkling.
Paul, could you, at least this year, try not to put any snow back there? Cause all that melting snow in the spring, you know, when you pull off snow, is there other locations other than over there to put in snow? Or to pile snow there for snow removal?
just to help put it in perspective, you know, on a 100-acre watershed, an inch of rain's over 1 million gallons. You know, a pile of snow, a couple thousand gallons isn't, it really is insignificant. You know, as far as the volume of water coming from that snow pile that's gonna perk into the ground.
But added with everything else, the blow off and.
I would, I'd put money, I'd bet that if you did the math on it, it would result in 0 elevation change of the groundwater table. The amount of water from, you know, even a huge pile of snow is just completely insignificant to that of a, you know, 1-inch rainfall. Comparatively,
But guess what's it gonna hurt moving it somewhere else?
Where is it as far as the proximity to where 21st Street ends? Where's the fire hydrant, or where is it blow off pump?
It's right. Blow off is right here.
So again,
Right here's the hydrant,
Yeah, that's the last hydrant right there.
but they're blowing off right here, right?
Yep, right off the end of that water service.
Probably actually this service right here.
Yep.
and then which way is it going, or?
It goes into the catch basin.
It's going in the catch sewer, and then it goes back to the south.
It comes over here, it goes right over here. Here's the pond right about in here somewhere.
Is there?
You can see the pond, you can see the contours show the pond, the fine contours.
Yeah,
there.
do we have, I mean, that's throwing it out there, but I mean, reaching out to the school district, if it was a case where the utility was interested in running some type of pipage north, to just run it that way for a while and see if anything changes, or at least it would at least allow for the water to be flushed every so often, so your water isn't yucky.
It's yucky. I'm telling you, it's not
But you know
good.
what I mean, just like a 10-inch pipe and running it north.
Yeah, there's a house there now, but I mean, you know, if as far as a temporary pipe running over.
Yeah, I mean,
but-
just to see it for a test, like a 3-month type of a deal. Granted, wintertime, well, flowing water doesn't freeze. I don't know how intermittent type of pumping water would freeze or not, depending upon topography, but.
from a public consumption, I would estimate that a 4-inch water main, 4 to 6 inch, would be more than enough to serve that subdivision. That's a 12-inch main. So there's just, then it's a dead end. It's just a bad situation.
But I still think, Brian lives in the city and we're providing city services. I think his quality of service should be just as good as mine or the next person. And if it isn't, then we're falling short in our service here. And I'm not an engineer to be able to rectify the situation, but there's gotta be a solution somewhere. Because his service is not as good as mine.
His water service?
Yeah, I don't have scummy water.
Well,
how far do I live from you, Brian? I don't live that far.
anyone that, yeah, I mean,
It's a 12-inch water.
it's a 12-inch water main. But, yeah, a lot of the water main design in most cases is the codes require it to be oversized for fire flow and other reasons. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I'm probably
Can we blow off
glad
another
to serve.
spot and then blow off on the end, so that I'm not getting all the grunt on the end, and can we blow it off on the other pond?
Is that 12-inch loop?
No, that's what we're talking
that's
about.
the problem.
No. It's been since day one.
Yeah, and then Jennifer's gotta deal with all the leaching into the ground flowing her way then.
I guess when they designed that subdivision, did they ever think about those ponds? Were those ponds always gonna stay there? I guess that's, because I don't even know how anybody would even build up those spots there. I guess I didn't honest truth really even know that pond was there when I bought my lot.
It was.
Till I walked over to that one day.
That whole plan, when we purchased our property, that was 20-some years ago, we were told that the highway was gonna go through behind us, and that was all dedicated for the highway. And so that was supposed to be temporary, and that's what we were told when we purchased our property. And so I think all these problems now, from that temporary problem, is now, okay, now it's become permanent, because no one, we've come to you, this is our second time, and no one seems to have a solution. And, it's like, there's got to, and I agree with Shane, there's got to be some sort of answer. And I understand, yes, there might be an expense involved, but right now, the expense is just, when we come in and talk, it's like, well, the expense is on us.
Well,
So,
But the problem is that a storm sewer system is designed to manage stormwater, and that system, it does that. And that's in part what the developer wanted, probably to be able to sell lots, because I'd hate to even guess what it would cost to install a pump station and pump that, and then rebuild all the sewer to 8th Street. Maybe millions.
Is there stormwater out there? Stormwater pipe out there?
So it's all self-contained.
All is water and sanitary?
Yeah, so there's water, sanitary, but the storm sewer that's there flows into these stormwater ponds, and then just slowly perks.
So the storm sewer system would have to be several feet deeper than where it currently is on Airport, in order to impact any of the groundwater level.
The next street with the storm sewer is 1,700 feet away.
Yeah.
What about going to the 2 mile?
So you're saying that we could never annex all the property up and down Airport to 32nd if we wanted to, or they wanted to, because our storm system couldn't handle the increase in flow, or the increase in volume?
Well, no, so storm sewers, like Joe mentioned, they're primarily built to handle stormwater runoff. In some cases, we do put in perforated pipe to allow groundwater to come into those pipes. The pipes that are out there are only about 6 feet deep.
So it's the
And
piping
generally,
in the
storm sewer,
subdivision
you only
that's not
put
satisfactory.
it deep as you'd want to put it. So I mean, or as you'd need to put it. Generally, storm sewer's shallow compared to sanitary sewer. Generally, you're looking primarily at capturing.
I'm sorry, did I say sanitary? So if airport wanted to annex and we had to put in storm sewer, we couldn't there because we couldn't handle the increased flow of stormwater?
Then
Into the system?
Gravity's not gonna allow it to go west anyway.
Okay.
Right, so, a stormwater design would run that to some other, some other creek. Or, if there's no other waterways that it could be run to.
So it's dead-ended at 20th, then
Right.
it can, nothing to the east of there could ever connect to it unless it was all rebuilt to the west.
If you wanted to take care of the groundwater. If you wanted just to deal with the stormwater, you can do that and run it to the 2 mile. But if you're trying to get it deep enough, what Joe is saying, if you're trying to get it deep enough and put perforated pipe in to get rid of the groundwater, which is what part of the problem is the groundwater.
So you're gonna start 10 or 12 feet deep and then go deeper from there. It's not what storm sewer is designed to do. Storm sewer is for just
Take off surface water and
right?
remove it, right? But their issue is also surface water because it's draining into the ponds. Because that's, the water in the ponds from the surface water, correct? And then also the ground table. So, yeah, but even connecting and removing the surface water, that won't assist at all? Or because the piping isn't at the correct depth, that it's gotta be pumped up to our current, at 20th and Airport, to the current level of the piping there? Or,
Right, this is too low to tie into the city's existing system. So when the subdivision was designed, that's what the developer elected to do, was self-contained. Now, that's what any commercial business has to do also. Commercial business, you look out at Walmart, you look at,
Home Depot and-
yeah, they have to manage that stormwater on site. So it's the same concept.
However, we're trying to manage the public right away, not a commercial business, so.
Right. I guess the storm sewer systems aren't always, to manage stormwater, it doesn't necessarily mean put it in a pipe and run it to a river. If there's filtration, there's a number of options for managing stormwater, and this was the option that was chosen. I don't know what elevations the groundwater came up to this spring in this neighborhood. But the houses, when they were built, were above the groundwater table, or everyone would have had sump pumps in, and some of the residents out there don't. And now the groundwater table's higher than that, and it's affecting some of them just because of the natural, elevation of the ground and the combination of the groundwater, and the elevation of the homes.
Another interesting factor in this is that, 21st place, because it's in the city, has curb and gutter, which then we typically put in storm sewer. Without the curb and gutter, you'd put in roadside ditches, just like Airport has. And the ditches on Airport don't, unless they're right next to the creek there. They generally, everything just comes off the road and soaks in. So, using that as a potential factor, it is concentrating the water, collecting it and concentrating it into the ponds. But essentially the water that falls there,
Does it
during a rain
anyway.
event, I mean, that's,
Gonna be
it
absorbed
stays
into
there
the same
it would have stayed there anyway. I mean, the only additional factor that we would have any control over would be the flushing device. But even then, to what extent that's causing the groundwater elevation. I mean, it's a factor, but to what extent, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, it seems like we got, what we do, we've got groundwater issue, we also got drinking water issue. I make a suggestion that we reach out to the neighbors on the north and work with the utility. Regardless who contacts them, I can contact the utility and whoever else, but suggest trying to take that blow-off pump operation and see if we can run a hose 100 yards, 150 yards north from wherever the pump is, from a fire hydrant, and broadcast it, the water into a different location, into a different area there. That's potentially one remedy. That's one of the least expensive remedies that I can see, but I don't know how well that's going to affect the groundwater. And again, there
Well,
are...
for water quality, if that could be tied in at this end and run north, well then, you know, part of the problem is if the blow off is not at the end, the houses on the end still have totally stagnant water, and even then, you know, a blow off on a 12-inch main needs to blow a lot more than 3,000 gallons a day to really be effective. But I mean, that would likely help the water quality situation if, you know, if that water could be blown off 150 yards-ish to the north.
Yeah, like just a pipe running north and just, I mean, that's
How
one
far
thing.
is
we've
that,
done.
where does that take us on the map, Joe?
That's in the school property.
Is that a 40-acre property right there?
Yeah.
Would their permit allow them to blow it onto the ground? I think so. They probably have to check with the DNR if they're gonna move it. Either move the flushing device and the discharge point.
There's got to be air gap. I mean, there's got to be for sanitation purposes.
I think it's built into
The device.
The device itself.
Inside, yeah.
But they could move it up to that hydrant potentially, is it?
You could put that blow off right at the valve right before the 16-inch. I think there's a piece of 16-inch that goes east-west right
Yep.
at the T there.
I mean, when we were blowing the water off, the water was a lot better, there's no doubt about it, but now since it's been 6 months or 7 months, I've noticed it quite a bit. I notice it when I clean my on-demand water heater, because I can flush out a lot of stuff out of that on-demand, and it's...
Looks like an 8-inch. Yeah, because what happens is there's you know, natural iron, manganese, other materials that's dissolved in the water, and the chlorine from disinfection is an oxidant, and so that causes it to precipitate out. And if there's plenty of water movement, it keeps it so small of concentrations that you don't notice it, but eventually, and you're at the point where you're having that problem now.
Yeah.
So,
Is it possible to run a jet up there? The sewer jet?
Not up a water main.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, no, that's a completely different animal.
Okay.
Could blow it out. There are methods to clean water mains. You know, general maintenance is flushing it, but there's also it's called pigging it, where a device gets inserted in, it's a sterile device, and then just the pressure of the water pushes it, and it scours the outside edge and cleans it. And you retrieve it out the hydrant, then blows it out.
Is the problem because the main is not looped?
And it's too big.
There's a number of factors. There's more than one factor. But does that sound satisfactory, at least for now, if we can try and reach out? Groundwater is the most challenging thing. But we can see this will serve two purposes right now if we're able to accommodate this, where we're going to be able to get you guys clean water, and then hopefully by taking it to a different, hopefully watershed area, then it could reduce your groundwater. I mean, if you guys got solutions too, I'm not an expert in this. Obviously, with all the different items that we went through, I'm trying to make decisions on everything as a whole. So, I mean, if you guys can do some Google searches and stuff like that and find out other areas that are affected and whatever else, and hey, you know, please share. You know, if this was, I like to be a problem solver and solve problems, but sometimes some problems aren't easily solved. But you know, if you got any other suggestions, because without really running something, and I don't know what the cost is, but again, it's a case where it's not a storm issue. You guys aren't being affected by the storm water system that we got. It's the groundwater that's being affected. And then we turned off the drinking water application because of the concern with the groundwater. So, I mean, this is, this is a step further than what we had prior, so.
Yes, we'll see what happens. See if we can blow it off in there.
Like I said, if you guys got solutions,
Well, like we said, there's a number of factors that play into it. And I mean, one is, yes, we have had record rainfall. But, you know, when we brought up the idea of like the snow being put where it's being put, I mean, there was a significant amount of snow being put there last year. And this year they're saying we're supposed to get just as much snow, if not more. That was a significant amount compared to the previous years. I mean, last year we had a lot of snow. So when you're saying it doesn't make a difference, Wausau had a very similar situation. And if you want more evidence, I mean, I can look that up and I can bring you that they had a similar situation and they moved where they were dumping the snow. I mean, the city chose to do that. So, I mean, you know, we did bring that to the table. And that was, you're saying, no, that's not a factor. I find that interesting when we had the amount of snow we had last year and it all got put there, that didn't add to it. I mean, all we're saying is, could you possibly remove any of the factors that could be causing this problem? We've had this property for, you know, we've had the house 11 years. We've never had anything like this before. Something is causing this. I mean, there are a number, the rainfall, of course. And,
if you've
yeah,
been there for 11 years, we piled snow there for 13 years.
but not that amount.
Well, correct, because we
Right.
had an above average snowfall.
Right. But
You know,
again, they're
which-
saying this
Which was
year.
followed by an above average amount of rain, and
Right.
I'm not taking
Right.
away from that.
How far are they from that standpipe? Or that water tower?
You know,
Not too far.
put another, if they have 3 wells in there and the monitoring wells are 3 feet above average, you know, from any other year, it's.
Well, I understand, but we're just saying, could you remove any
They're
of
not
those
that far from
factors?
the water
You
tower,
know?
that's where the highway is supposed to
Take
go.
it out of that 12-inch pipe and pump it back in the water tower.
I mean, can we potentially find alternatives, or at least try to make that this isn't the #1 place where we haul snow?
It's not the #1. It's the only time that we remove snow on A Street, that's when we haul snow there. That, honest to God truth. And I guess in front of the hockey rink, because it's right there. But yeah, I mean, we lost the airport, you know. So we had 2 places south of A Street, and this was the second one. So yeah, we can look for another place.
or even split it or something, but I mean, we live there, we know, we walk that street all the time. It was significant last year, a significant, compared to previous years. I mean, we know where we see the snow piles all the time, walking that road. So last year, it was significant. I mean, it was a mountain, so, I mean, if we crunch the numbers, I mean, I don't know how that could not affect somehow, or, be a component of why it was like it was.
Yeah, and then understanding where the topography is underneath the soil, where the overburden meets the rock, and where it actually holds, where the water aquifer is, because it might not just be snow deposited there, it might be also, from Grand Rapids or from another area where it naturally goes down, because that's the lowest point, that's a conical point of where everything is. And that's why we have our municipal wells in that area, because of that, the amount of water that's there,
Just as a real quick calculation, so a 1-inch rain event, basically over the north half of this subdivision, 1-inch rain event, 247,000 gallons of water. In just the north, just the north, basically, well, the north 2/3 of the subdivision. Kind of where the water breaks between north and south here. That's a 1-inch rain event. So, just to try to put some of the volumes in perspective. A snow pile is, again, I'd have to do the math on density, water density and stuff in a snow pile, but it's maybe thousands of gallons, but not 300,000 gallons. When you put these volumes in perspective, it's.
Do you guys have other areas in town that don't hooked in for their water? They have dead ends? Or are we just the only one?
I don't manage the water utilities, so I'd have to look at our.
I was just wondering if other people have the same problem.
There are a number of blow-offs.
Dead ends.
Okay, and you have blow-offs on them too?
No, I think this is the only flushing device like that I believe the city has. There might be other locations where they run it from time to time.
I would imagine the mains aren't as big as this main.
No,
Right.
and I think the other ones are primarily for frost protection, right, in the winter time?
Yep.
I don't have any solutions.
Well, like I said, for the purpose of being proper, so that we don't have everybody making phone calls to everybody, I would make a motion to direct staff to reach out to the neighbors to the north and the water utility to try and devise a short-term plan to at least improve the water quality of the residents on the street, and hopefully also create a situation where we're shifting water from one water aquifer to another through the blow-off or through the pump mechanism. But and then maybe next month when we have that snow and ice, when we do the referral for the snow and ice policy, is that we'll address that in terms of either one, trying to find another location, or making sure that we limit that location where we don't snow. Yeah, I truly do. I really wish I had a magic wand that, and I know Tom has probably thought that over the years too.
Yeah, we've had the discussion quite a few times, and nobody's been able to come up with the magic solution, how to get through it. And we seem to end up at the same point after each meeting.
Are you gonna try to?
If we try to do what I guess Thad's suggesting, staff here, Joe and Joe, if we could do that, do you see that that would help any, that would help to do that? Or is it just?
I mean, it's a
I-
factor to the degree that it's gonna help with the groundwater situation. I don't see it helping very much. Certainly, continuing to flush the water main will help the water quality situation there, but I don't foresee it impacting the groundwater table very much.
Well, let's see.
Do you want to, what?
Is that something
Let's
that's
try it,
gonna
let's see.
happen this year? Or, I mean, if
Yeah,
it's
we-
not, I'm gonna have to have, we have to either have them come over and something about blowing some water off or something, cause I gotta get some better water right now.
Well, regardless, you gotta, yeah, the water quality needs to change sooner than later for your cell. The question is, you know, does that 3 gallons per minute or whatever they flush through there, is that gonna significantly decrease the amount of groundwater there? Yes or no, I don't know. But, I mean, that would, with you reaching out directly to the utility and saying, hey, my water's scuzzy, I need to do something about it, I think that they would be very, I guess they would do what they could in the short term for that, you know, as far as a long-term type of a project to identify groundwater levels. I don't know. Again, this is a situation where it's kind of rather new to us, you know, or especially new to the committee right now. So you want to try it? Would I make a motion to direct staff to reach out to the utility?
Reach out to and I think see what they can come up with, because obviously, I think you mentioned, Joe, even you had the DNR or something too, maybe. Is that FP or not? Or
Yeah, I think,
check into? I mean,
it
to
might
look
just be
into
a
maybe
notice.
and come back, because nothing, I guess, could probably be done anyway, even if you said yes and go ahead, until, for sure, even by next month.
By council at least, especially, I mean.
Maybe, well, maybe by then, I don't know. That's pretty quick to me, but maybe.
I can reach out to Water and Light tomorrow.
I guess to reach out and see what there is, but somehow I think to
Is there more
Re-
than just
report
the
back.
people that's affected out there with that 12
report back to us.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new homes back there. How many homes do you guys think are affected?
For the water?
Yeah, how many homes are back by you now? Because this picture.
We got
isn't correct.
9 homes in there right now, and I know on the other end, like Don Bemke, his water doesn't get half as bad as mine, but I'm on the end there.
Sure. But how about the groundwater properties?
Oh,
Well,
I'm
they
okay
got
on that
wells,
right now, it's down.
But I mean, how many properties have been
Oh, that
affected by that?
affected? Okay, so
Yeah.
we're all, the ones that were affected were all on this end
Should
right
go
here.
over to the well.
Right.
Right here.
So 5 of them?
Yeah, this one,
They'd have to retreat
actually,
it.
Bob
Yeah.
Stoiber, or Bob Paulzine, he didn't have
That's
anything
treated,
done on his, he didn't have
All
to
the
worry
stuff
about
from the
his.
well gets
But it was
treated
just
anyway, right?
Us right here.
Right.
So 3 plus the Stoiber
Yeah,
property.
looping it
But
back.
also, and you guys, I mean,
You know,
apparently it wasn't
they
taken into
couldn't-
consideration
they
because they're
couldn't
not
make
city
the full
residents,
flow from
but the
that
individuals
12
on
inch,
Grove
but they could
Street
take-
did have their pumps going and had,
They
you know,
could
so they did
4
too.
inches.
So,
One
yeah,
house.
Wickersham, Dr. Wickersham, and then the house towards the.
It's just kinda goofy how it is though, because this pond,
Kinda like
Sorry, I
clean up
just-
the
this
water
pond over here
problem, but
hardly has any water in
clean
it.
up the
But that's just
groundwater problem.
elevation.
I know, it's just that much of a difference there.
Yeah, it's probably just that foot or two higher, you know, it'd be interesting if you go and shoot.
Wait, I don't think you have
Shoot
some
them
pumps
keys.
running out into the street on the south end either.
No,
So-
but if you go to shoot Mr. Bemke's house and go and shoot the first floor of
Sure.
his house.
Oh, yeah, the
if
house
that
elevation.
18 inch, if that 18 inches of elevation, and go and shoot the 2 stormwater ponds and see if the north pond is 12 inches, 18 inches, 2 inches deeper than the south pond, that's your static water line.
Right. Right.
you
Is
know,
there a
and-
possibility that most of the water from the road comes into that middle section instead of on that south end? That middle pond, because that's the one that gets, I mean, when I go down there, the water, so you can see it flowing right in there. It's just, but you
But
go
is
on the
that-
other end,
Is But is that because it's is it more now, or is that because you have the 3 or 4 properties on the north end that are pumping into the storm sewer?
Well,
which
yeah,
then-
you know, well,
you
the
know,
only one
nobody
that's
else
really
is-
pumping is the one right here.
All
He's the
water
one that
goes
pumped.
there anyways.
He pumped the whole time.
So yeah, you're right. Everything goes there. That goes into the storm sewer.
So,
Except for the stuff from Benke's to airport would go into.
yeah, and there's just a little, and you can see right there, and it goes back that way.
So you're probably right, where it's 2/3 of the water goes into the north pond and 1/3 goes into the south pond.
Yeah.
We can reach out, or I'll go along with that, I guess.
Second.
To move this thing along.
Motion on the
See
floor.
what, I mean, that's, obviously, we're gonna have to hear back before anything's done, you know, to reach out, just see, and maybe some new figures or whatever staff puts together too, of what that actually would do or wouldn't do, or would the DNR in conjunction too, in that, so.
Well,
Just
yeah,
to see.
Bud, you know the motion that I got? Motion to direct staff to investigate and reach out to the utility and the northern neighbors to find potential remedy for the water blow off from the 12-inch main. That's what the motion is. Tom seconded that, so. Okay, motion on the floor, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And we will still keep this on, you know, the radar for you guys. It's one thing where I don't want it to seem like, you know, we did this and now it isn't. It's a problem that is kind of an ongoing problem, and, you know, whatever we can, you know, if you guys can find something, if you can find any research items and whatever that might work, that, you know, especially our kind of work with both the water and work with groundwater, let us know right away, you know.
I hate to leave it like this,
I
because it's
know.
been too many times, but
Yeah, wait, yeah, I get it.
So with that, we will go on to item number 8, review and update the correspondence with West DOT for the turn lanes at the intersection of East Street and Chestnut Street. And I know, Mr. Kellogg, this is one thing that you were pleasantly waiting for. Yeah. So, Mr. Eichstadt, you had a phone conversation with the DOT, is that correct?
I did, yes. So that, in the referral the referral document, I provided the phone conversation record. As far as modifying the center left turns on 8th Street, that was really the safety factor for the last project that was done there, was putting those left turn lanes in, having that painted median. So at the DNR, or the DOT, along with my opinion and recommendation, is to leave well enough alone with the improvements made on 8th Street. But I think there's an option on the side streets on Chestnut Street to remove that lane divider between the left turn lane on Chestnut and the through and right. And so there's a couple documents floating around here that kind of show that. Here's another small one.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
yeah, I was looking at that too.
Which I think would accomplish what, it would accomplish the, provide additional turning radius for vehicles to make that maneuver onto 8th Street without impacting the safety enhancements on 8th Street.
One of the things, I guess, and this is just anecdotal because it's my own, but it seems like on Chestnut Street, it would be on the east side of Chestnut Street going westbound. Going westbound, yeah, that's the best way, going westbound or northbound. Cars do fill up there, whether they're turning right or whether they're turning left. So having that left turn lane where cars can turn right and going north from Chestnut onto 8th Street, I think we would almost need to keep that. But whereas the on the south side, I think that's where, it'll be on the west side of Chestnut Street, turning right onto A Street, going southbound. That's one
That's my
thing.
concern.
That one's my concern too. So can we take off that divider on just one side of the intersection, or is it something where we have to do it on both sides?
When you say one side, are you meaning on Chestnut or on 8th Street?
Just on Chestnut, because we can't even touch A Street, right?
We would highly recommend that we don't, for a couple of reasons. One, those were the safety improvements, and if we would negate our safety improvements, especially so soon after getting the grant for it, chances are that, well, I mean, the gentleman from the DOT suggested that in the future, our grants wouldn't be looked upon favorably. But again, on Chestnut, I think we can do, you know, a couple of things there.
This one.
Yeah, I mean, I took our mechanic's truck, which is a 1-ton dually, and I got video of it. If you drive up, kind of hug the curb, hug that. I mean, I position myself multiple ways in that lane. You can make that turn safely without encroaching into the center. Now, if you're pulling a trailer, different story. If you've got a box truck or a delivery vehicle, different story. You've got a school bus, different story. The way it's striped right now, someone can, if they have a larger vehicle, you know, they can straddle that white line and kind of take up both spaces in order to navigate that turn.
Well, I don't want to negate, I don't want to negate your experiment, but you were cognitively trying to do that.
I did both.
Well, no, but I mean, you knew what you were doing. What if you're distracted? Because that's the thing, is that it isn't. I'm not concerned about the person that drives well, you know, that knows how to drive the vehicle. It's the person that's distracted with a cell phone, or their music is too loud.
Or they're coming
So-
from Clover.
So it's a 15-foot radius corner. It's absolutely typical. There's just not a lot of room with 2 lanes in there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's totally permissible for somebody to straddle that right now if they need that room to make that right turn. And so you can have the best of both worlds if you leave it alone. You know, you can still make the right turn in your lane, but if you've got an oversized vehicle or a trailer and you need the space, you can do that.
But if I don't know about that corner, I don't know to straddle it. You know, so if you have that line to make forcing you over, then you will have to straddle. I mean,
And that was the other, so that's the option that Joe Eichstead proposed, is that if you just remove that center line and don't do anything, then you have the potential for 2 vehicles now to line up with each other, and maybe someone's going to make a left. You're not supposed to pass on the right, you know. So there's physically enough room for 2 lanes, right? 18 feet makes room legally for 2 lanes, and we have a little more than that there. So what he's proposing is, in order to reduce that so that you don't have 2 lanes anymore, that white line reduces that such that you have 1 lane.
Yeah.
And from the city's analysis, that doesn't affect the level of service of the intersection. Yeah. If you're, and that level of service isn't necessarily measured by how much time you might wait at a red light, right? Because if you're in the right turn lane, you can turn right on red. Here, you can still do that if you're the first vehicle. But that level of service is really defined as, does the intersection clear? When the light turns green and I'm on Chestnut, can I get through the intersection? And the answer is yes. So if we do this, yeah, you might have to wait a little bit longer if the car in front of you is not making a right turn and you want to turn right. But the level of service as it's measured as a standard isn't degraded, right? So So we saw this as a viable solution. If that's, either way, I think is fine. We can leave it alone, but if you want to do something, we could do this, be, minimal cost, a little bit of paint.
But this eliminates left turns. Is that what I'm getting from you?
It does not.
No.
So
Okay.
you'd be able to go any direction from that lane. You'd be able to turn left or
That's
go
on
straight.
both sides of Chestnut, right?
Oh,
The way
Yes.
it's proposed.
As I look at it, right, just so I'm clear.
All it does is
So
pull
you're
that,
gonna- it's
pull
gonna
that
be
shoulder
instead of
paint.
Instead of a
in
turning
little
lane,
bit.
instead of a left turn
what
lane
does that mean?
or a straight and right hand turn lane, it's gonna just be one.
Right.
On both
He's
sides.
saying,
Oh,
right.
he's saying
Take-
take
take-
this.
Yeah.
Take the physical sign that says left turn only out. That's what that means?
Right.
Okay. So you're not eliminating the left turn?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
And
Yeah,
even
it's just
later on.
really-
Coming up to the intersection will just be one lane.
Sure.
I would think too, I think it's a good idea for an adjustment, and even later on, you might even look at the timing of the lights too. For Chestnut, let's say you have a backup on Chestnut, you could probably change the timing of the lights so you have a little bit more time, so Chestnut clears, but that's later on.
Yeah, we don't anticipate that being a problem right
Yeah.
now, with the volume that's on there.
Right.
I know, well, eastbound traffic on Chestnut I found not to be that busy, but there's been times where I've come up, even with the 2 lanes and everything, on westbound Chestnut, either trying to get on A Street or go across there. That one's more thick.
Well, I'm just saying, this is a really new intersection. I mean, I've driven over there quite a number of times, and I think whenever we make changes in the city, I mean, people are slow to adapt. But, just like with our roundabouts, they catch on after a while and stuff, and I suspect that will be the case. I mean, though there will be, I think the safety factor is really important because we're going to be having the aquatics center there, and there's going to be a lot of traffic. Having more control there will end up being, I think, a more safety feature, especially for people walking along there, riding bikes, things like that. So-
Well, exactly, that's why this whole thing came about, because of the potential lack of safety on that right-hand turn.
And I think that is a good point too. I don't see much traffic going west on Chestnut. I'll see a lot of traffic going east on Chestnut. So you might want to just keep the lines going west on Chestnut the same, because you have a left turn, they can turn right and they go straight. Maybe just keep those the same, and just have the going east on Chestnut with that, moving it out a bit.
I don't see any issue with that.
Yeah.
Do you?
So you're saying that just
Leave
remove the lane
westbound the same.
divider on the eastbound?
I only see the problem going east by
Yeah.
Dollar Tree or whatever.
Where the old,
And,
yeah,
That's the only corner I see a problem with,
yeah.
basically.
Because
Why
westbound's
is
the
that?
same.
What's
sharp.
What's the problem?
It's the same,
It's the same, isn't it,
radius
on both sides?
both corners. So anybody making a right-hand turn off of Chestnut onto East Street, either eastbound or westbound, it's the same.
It's identical.
Yeah, it's a mirror image.
Forget it. Go with both, so.
Yeah, I guess I just never experienced it, but and again, it's just my own anecdotal, it's on
Yeah.
the family video or the Dollar General corner there.
Well,
It's
and
a-
that
it's
might
a-
be,
it's a-
that might be, just speculating, that there's more people that are making a northbound left turn.
Correct.
And so you'll experience that more often. If there's not as many people making a southbound
Yes.
left turn, so you swing a little bit into the turn lane. It doesn't mean anything because there's nobody there, right? But, your experiences might be reflecting the volume of traffic making those movements.
Yeah, because realistically, if you're coming down A Street and you're going somewhere, you're gonna turn and go eastbound on East Grand rather than coming southbound and taking a left on Chestnut, because your best bet is the bigger intersection. So, but whereas if you're going northbound, there's a reason why you're taking a left on Chestnut, because you didn't wanna take the expressway or you got business somewhere else down in the other part of town.
Yeah.
Whether it's a library or going to the post office or whatever else.
I mean, quite frankly, if you just want to try one, there really isn't a issue with either or. We don't see how the intersection is going to be ill-served either as it is or as proposed, and you could do one leg one way and one the other if you wanted.
Committee?
Right, it's also, or I mean,
To me, I guess if we're gonna change
Right,
it, I
the
guess
west
I'd
one.
rather just change both sides, but, make it the same.
Well, I don't have a problem with that
But,
either. I mean, yeah, make it the same so that people are consistent with it.
Well, no, because then you're lined up, the traffic going against each other. One's gonna wonder why we got 2 lane space, I mean, one's going the other way, to me.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
know,
opposed,
I-
I'm not opposed to that, that makes
It's
sense.
just,
Mr. Blazer?
I agree, I think do both of them or none of them, because keep it consistent.
All right, I'll make a motion that we make adjustments to both the eastbound and westbound Chestnut Street lanes as recommended on this picture here. Oh, yes, sir.
all that something.
What's your expectation? It's 28 degrees out. Paint doesn't work real well when it's 28 degrees.
It'd be in the spring.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just-
would you be fine with springtime?
Yeah.
I just want to
before
make
the
sure that you're not
aquatic center.
expecting it before next week, because.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah, before the aquatic center opens up, that's my.
Very
As
good,
soon as
just want to make
possible.
sure we meet expectations, that's all.
Great Christmas present, right?
Yeah.
So I
It
make
could be 60 next week, we could do it next week.
yeah, absolutely. I'll make a motion to approve changes for one bound lane, or what, how about this? I approve the picture submitted to the committee. And as far as time sensitive, not until next season.
when possible,
Yeah, when,
weather permits.
weather permitting, or whenever the next paint season occurs. Nothing extraordinary for painting this. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion on the floor, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll go on to item number 9. Review and update approving changes to lawn mowing practices and procedure of the city-owned boulevard at the south side of the expressway. And there should be an and other sloped green spaces. So this is something that we've had on the referral list, and it's a case where it was suggested, or at least I thought that I heard it at one time suggested that there are other potential sloped areas in town. I guess if the mower doesn't work in a sloped area, what are we gonna do moving forward? And maybe this is something that we have to have as far as kind of like a snow and ice removal policy. We have a lawn mowing policy. Is there, by chance, a lawn mowing policy that we have at all, or no?
I mean, we follow the manufacturer's recommendations for, I mean, that was the primary reason why we selected this area as an area to stop mowing, was because it doing so violates the safety policies of the safety guidelines of the manufacturers, and the new mower won't do it. The safety switches, the slope sensors, shut it down.
Well, there are, I don't want to get into the argument of whether a mower can do it, whether a mower can't do it. And it is accurate that there's some mowers that can, that can't. But I did look up, I couldn't, I don't know why, I couldn't find the standard for the OSHA that talks about, I think it's like a 15-degree slope and then a 30-degree slope or whatever. But there still are, if it is in the interest of the committee and the city or the city council to have green spaces mowed, there are options that are available.
Sure.
There are mowers that can do that. Now, there is cost to it. There are other contractors that can do it. There's contractors that make their employees do things, and we wouldn't want to be contracting with them, but there's options. There's a suggestion like Bloody 07, where string trimmers are used. But one of the things, and that's the thing, is that I've kind of heard on initial side, especially with Bird City and with Monarch's encouragement, that they would like to do some things that would benefit the city, but there are some places in town that I think would be great for it. Like, for example, on Wilson Street, there's a really nice open area over there that wouldn't be affected by traffic and everything else, but we can find different areas for other things. But the question is, the primary thing before we can even think about leasing or gifting or granting our public-owned land to different individuals, because then there's going to be other nonprofits that might want to use the land for other things. And so we got to get to the point of what are we going to do? Are we actually going to mow these? Why haven't they been mowed? Is it a case where it is because the mower that we don't have doesn't work, so therefore we find a new option of doing it? But we, at least as far as this committee is concerned, or as far as the Parks Committee is concerned, I don't think that there's been any actual policy issue that we're not going to specifically be mowing stuff, just because we don't have the equipment to do it, because again, it can get taken care of, so.
I went to the Toro factory and talked to them. There's a 16-degree angle that the Toro that we have can cut. Now,
Yep.
what degree did you come up with?
It's 20 and up. It's 20 to 24.
What's the, it's 20?
Yeah.
Why do you mow it at that degree?
We don't anymore.
You do too. You
No,
go
we
around
don't.
the trees on the south side.
Yeah, but it's not, that's not on the
Yes, it
steep part
is.
of the slope.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's the same slope. And the Spring Street Hill, you're on the backside, it's gotta be at least a 33 degree. It's as steep as Golden Sands Speedway, the track, and that's 33 degrees. I mowed it, and they're mowing it right now. The backside of Spring Street Hill.
You've mowed all those areas.
I know them all. I was, Bud Brzezinski, when he was operations director, asked if I could mow that hill. It was all little trees growing up and everything. It looked great for a lot of years. Now it looks like crap. A handful of people want to plant that with butterfly stuff. 18,000 people in the city thinks it looks like crap.
We're not going to get into that debate. What we're going to be talking about, and I thank you for coming down, Sully, is are we going to mow stuff or are we not going to mow stuff? You know, and again, I've been approached on both sides, but by planting other things in an area isn't necessarily going to change the initial policy of the fact that why aren't we mowing? You
So
know?
there's two reasons. One is it's steep. Two is that we don't have time. With the staff that we have, we sat down, we had our department heads, Paul and his staff sat down and tried to develop efficiencies in our mowing routes so that we didn't have parks crews mowing here and streets crews mowing in the same area, right? We tried to make it more efficient, but we still were not getting everything mowed timely. And if you recall, I think it was 4 years ago, a lot of the stuff in the downtown area, our parks, you know, when we got done mowing it, it didn't look good. It was clumped up bad. And because we just don't have the staff to
Why?
mow
And
everything.
see,
Why
I
don't
think
you have the
that's why
staff?
the
Because
two.
we don't have the budget.
And that's
to
why,
have the
yeah,
staff, right?
the-
So-
the two issues there, we don't, and I agree.
So-
We
so-
don't have the equipment to do it.
And we don't have the
On the
staff.
steep
Right.
slopes, we don't have the equipment for that, but we are short of people. And that adds a big part to it.
Okay, well then,
We're short of people. That's
you know, we're defeating the purpose.
so that's,
I got the ordinance right here. The ordinance says that if there's any weeds or grass that's tall, we'll go out and mow it, whether it's the cities or whether it's private. And we'll build a private owner for it. That hill there across from the hospital hasn't been mowed all summer long. And I haven't gotten a lot of complaints, but I have gotten complaints. It doesn't look good. The city used to mow it. He mowed it for years, just because we bought new mowing machines and they got safety switches on it, we can't mow it. Now, rather than going out and contracting with a private contractor, my feeling is that we should get in touch with the county and see if the county has a mower that can mow those couple places. Because you and I, as taxpayers, pay for part of that county equipment.
Oh, that, yeah. Yeah.
And why shouldn't we be able to use it? We shouldn't have to go out and contract. So I'm saying that we're violating our own ordinance, and we've done it all summer long, and shame on the city. If we don't have the men, we should hire the men.
Well, yeah, that's. the
That section right there, though, I think that the part right there.
Well, the ordinance though is for residential properties. It's not all land.
But why should the city be exempt?
Because it's not a residential property. It's not, all of the property in the city doesn't.
Look at the other ordinance. This is one, this is signed by the mayor.
That's part of the wildflower place, though. Isn't that what has been allowed to grow up?
Okay, so this is the noxious weed ordinance.
There's a certain area
Yeah.
that's allowed to.
Right.
Hold tight, Jim.
Well, I've got the other ordinance here, just a minute, I'll dig it out.
I would like to do.
Shane, did you, I heard.
You want me to go now or wait?
Yeah, being a council member, yeah, go ahead.
I've been the advocate very loudly to mow, because I don't care if it's residential or, that's probably the one of the most highest visible pieces of stretch of road through the community, and it looks neglected. Now if that whole area was set up with, and it had an appearance of wildflowers and prairie grasses and those types of things, I might be able to understand it better, but right now, it looks like if I never mowed my yard, that's what it would look like. And I know the city would be over there and would be happily to mow it for me, and I'd be on my tax bill. I just think that it's embarrassing for the city, especially, you know, our beautification committee has a role, a very effective role, but that's not beauty there with unmowed grass. You know, like I said, if it was torn out and something functional was put there, that if I'm driving through the community from some other community, all I'm going to look over and see, wow, they don't even mow their own lawn. They don't mow the lawn here. That's what it looks like, and it needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Jim.
So Lee, how long of a time span was it for you to mow that hill, or that slope?
Well, that little piece that you got left there, if it was mowed every couple of weeks, where it was the one, that little piece would take an hour. Now, here's another thing, you just developed a whole bunch more work across the street between the hospital and the river, and next to the Elks Club. Who's gonna take care of all that?
Mm-hmm.
All them gardens and the grasses that grow up this high, and it ain't gonna be down in Idaman.
Here's section 302.4.3. Add, duty to destroy. Every person shall destroy all noxious weeds on all lands within the city of Wisconsin Rapids, which they shall own, occupy, or control, including any terrace or any ditches abutting said property. The weed commissioner shall destroy all noxious weeds on all public lands within the city of Wisconsin Rapids.
And noxious weeds are defined.
Huh?
Noxious weeds are defined in there also. Grass is not
That's
a
right.
noxious weed.
Yeah. They define noxious weed.
Right. And grass is not a noxious weed.
No, but in this other, in this ordinance, I believe it spells out grasses over such 4 inches, 6 inches, something like that. I'll find it one of these days.
Because if we have to mow every blade of grass, every component of the city within 4 inches, everywhere, you
I
need
know,
another,
I know,
you need
I
another
know.
30 people to
I
do
know.
it.
I don't know if it'd be 30 people. I mean, maybe 20 people.
But I just think that,
I mean, we can budget, if you want to do it, we can budget equipment and staff to do it. But what I'm getting at is we don't have the equipment and staff to do it now. And so if you want to do that, we have to look at pulling 7 other acres from our schedule. And, you know, I don't know where else you want to stop mowing. And if we're gonna take a look at an ordinance and say, well, we're supposed to mow it because the ordinance says,
Well, but that's not really part of the issue. The issue is that we're not allocating the right amount of money to the departments that need attention. And I can attest that when I was a summer help kid 20 years ago, we had a ton of people just in the street department alone.
Right.
Let alone the parks department and everything else.
and now I'll say, we are hiring every kid that applied, right? I don't think this last year there was a kid we didn't hire. I mean, we have a hard time finding.
Correct, but we're bonding monies now. We're creating budgets and approving budgets with a tremendous amount of bonding going on because we don't have the money to begin with, let alone the money to take care of the necessary areas that we need to take care of. And this isn't a blame on you guys. This isn't a blame on Public Works. This is a blame on leadership from the top down, where the wrong monies are being allocated to the wrong places, especially if we don't even have the monies for it. We need to take care of our own backyard first, and that's allocating the funds, and that's the one thing that the council has, yes.
I know I'm in the minority here, and I do represent a number of people, and we've heard from people that appreciate the direction that the city is trying to move towards more sustainability. The city has adopted a sustainability, kind of resolution. We've made ourselves a bird city, which also includes, addressing, having natural habitat. And from what I can see, lawns are not going to fit that bill. That's not sustainable. The practices of, just constant mowing is not a sustainable practice at all. As far as, we've seen, a lot of different changes to, to our weather and to the practices. We've got, trees coming down. There's, I think, the natural grasses and plants that they've planted in is a really good idea. I don't see that that's a problem. I think that that is actually something that over the years, it will come back to us in so many ways. It will, help control the geese. It will provide natural habitat. It will get people, young people, families that are interested more in our city. I mean, it's an attractive thing. I mean, I know right now that some people see that section along, 8th Street. I actually went up on the hill there, and I was part of the planting crew, so I mean, I'm a little biased. But I mean, I was up there, and it's hard to see the flowers and things from the road right now. Putting the sign up there at the dedication, I think was something that we hope to educate people on. I think the city can actually, do stuff to educate as well, that hey, we're trying to make strides towards making our city a more sustainable place. And we don't have to mow everything in order to make our city attractive. I mean, there's just not a standard like that anymore. That's an old-fashioned, situation. I mean, it used to be everyone was out mowing their lawns constantly, and everyone had just square patches on their lawns, and that was what you wanted. Well, people are starting to convert their lawns into, wildflower gardens, into, perennial gardens, partly because it's less work. It actually absorbs that groundwater. Those deep prairie plants actually suck that up more than, just runoff coming, down into your roads and things. There's just so many different benefits that we can have from that kind of perspective. And I think that that's a long-term sort of thing, and I think we have trouble dealing with, short-term criticism, and I understand that, but I do think that, those are some things that we ought to consider. So thanks for your listening.
Well, absolutely, but I think one of the challenges, though, in terms of looking at sustainability, especially a city sustainability, it isn't just mowing grass. There's a lot of different things. Alternative currency is a wonderful option. No one's talking about that.
I was part of the sustainability committee for Encourage, and we talked about it in a lot of different, different perspectives as well.
And that's the thing is that, you know, there are different perspectives.
But you
know,
have to
and-
bring everything in.
And that's how do you do it with incrementalism? You know, you can't do it with a full, and what I don't want to be doing is, I don't want to be debating or arguing you know, so I don't want to put you on the spot that way. But it is a case where, right now, the reason why we're even talking about this isn't because the city made the decision to become sustainable in terms of the hill. It's because we didn't either have the resources or the equipment to mow it, so we decided not to mow it. Period. So.
Somehow can we get, and not tonight, obviously, get the information, what is, time is spent on mowing and what we all mow, for one thing, I think.
He's got it actually in his book right there.
And, you know, the amount of time that takes and what we have, and then along with all of that is the decision, I think,
So I'm sorry, Tom. if I
no,
interrupted
it's just
you.
that, you know, do we continue to continue to mow what we are mowing, or are we missing places that we should mow? And other places could be let to grow longer, that we wouldn't have to do, you know, consistently. Like, there's a way to rotate the schedule around or whatever to accomplish whatever we want to accomplish. And but I know part of the reason that why this is here is because of the hill on the expressway. And that's basically, so, you know, well, we should mow, don't mow, or, and that type of stuff, you know, we can look at. And that's what I'd like, if you do have something, Paul, it's
Yeah.
fine.
No,
But-
so just a rough estimate, the street department staff budget is about $50,000 a year to mow certain road right-of-ways. I'm guessing that so we run one mower virtually through the summer months for 1 week, virtually a month. The Parks Department staff is typically running 2 mowers, 2 of the 16-foot mowers. And so I'm guessing that they're probably in that $125,000 a year for mowing right-of-ways, and that's virtually 2 persons from spring to, you know, it stops, and normally it slows down in July. This year it kept going all the way through. You know, and so to the comment, I don't know if Sully was the one that said it or whatever, we still have 1 4-wheel drive Toro that should go away just because it's 15 years old and it's starting to use oil and everything like that. We have a 2-wheel drive Toro and then we have the new Jacobson. So eventually the mower that we currently use on the slopes is going to go away. And to your comment earlier, Thad, about areas that we don't mow, you know, are virtually all of the overpass areas. So Highway 73 outside Midstate Truck and George Road, you mow as much as you can, but then the slope gets too steep where you turn and you go directly down. Highway 1334 on the Craft Mill side is done once a year for an area that's 8 foot wide. We have seasonal employees that go there and they string trim along the fence, you know, virtually a 6-foot area. Otherwise, that whole overpass is not mowed the entire season. I'm going to say it wrong because I'm always say it wrong, but the west side of that overpass, which would be on the Bono Avenue side, probably 60% of that is mowed. The other 40%, about where the beam guard is, gets to be too steep. So then same thing, you turn and you go straight down, and then the rest of that area is left. On the south side of the railroad tracks there, it's the same thing. About where Fremont Street is where it's mowed all the way to the back of the curb. Otherwise, it's 1 8-foot pass, maybe it's 12 feet, where they turn around and do 1 wing going down or whatever. You know, the new mowers aren't like the Toros. You know, there's more safety switches on and everything like that. the old Toros that we have, you used to be able to drive on the street, put the wing down on the boulevard and mow while you go down the street. The Jacobsons, you can't do that anymore. And I believe I wasn't in charge or wasn't involved with the purchase of this one, except for approving it based on the cost and the specs, meeting the specs and stuff like that. I don't think the new Toros have that capability of doing that anymore either, so. Otherwise too, you mentioned it earlier, Bloody 07, we string trim that once a year. Otherwise, the whole thing isn't done. Riverwood Lane on the expressway, you know, there's a steep slope that's on the back side of that from the expressway bridge down to it. That area is not not string trimmed, or it's string trimmed once a year, I'm sorry. And then the Demetz Park side is also string trimmed once a year. And then there's parts in that little triangle between First Street and Riverwood Lane that that you can only mow from the road, so that whole area isn't done, but there's some areas that are left there. But like I said earlier, the majority of it is in these spots where there's overpasses. You know, and talking about some of the things that are occurring on the expressway bridge there, you know, I don't think I was even born when the expressway was built, but there are areas that I don't know if that was wooded, you know, when that was built, but there's areas that I don't know if there's stumps that are rotting there from when it was built or whatever, but it's not just a standard nice 3-to-1 slope across the whole thing. There's spots that through time have settled down, you know, 18 inches to 2 feet, you know, for an area that is maybe the size of the table there or whatever, you know. So could that be fixed? Sure, yeah, we could haul multiple loads of quad axle topsoil up there and reshape it and seed it again, you know.
It was a dump at one time.
So, yeah, where the hospital was, that was the whole area was.
Right where the pumping station was.
I think it's 1978, I think, is when the expressway was built.
Yeah, and so another thing there, another thing is that, you know, being that it's prairie grass, typically you burn that off in the spring. The spring wasn't, the fire department had it because Jason Joling does an annual training, and he goes out at the police pistol range. He used to burn where Metalco was going, and he was also going to use that spot. It wasn't conducive to do it when they wanted to. They didn't get the right weather and stuff like that, and so that didn't get done. Is that going to help things? Certainly it's going to help things compared to what it is now, you know. But like I said, we needed to come up with time to save, you know, on it. I'm not going to say I disagree with Sully saying that it would take him an hour to do that. I'm guessing it'd probably take closer to 2 or 3 hours to mow it, and that's what we were trying to come up with, was the cost savings, and so that's why we quit mowing that area.
Well, I mean, I don't think that 3 hours is even unrealistic, but I mean, if it's a case where we don't have the manpower,
That's right.
let's get some more people.
I'd like to say I don't blame you. I don't blame your department. You know, the city of Wisconsin Rapids for years and years has been named Tree City USA. I don't want Wisconsin Rapids to be named Trash City USA. You know, years ago we had the light poles painted. They looked like everything from the ground up to about 8 feet was just all rusted, and we got that painted. We made a lot of improvements along the expressway. We had flowers planted, and it wasn't long after I left, the flowers were taken out and topsoil put in there and grass put in there because it was cheaper to mow than it was to take care of the flowers. I had a chance to go on vacation up to Alaska, to Fairbanks, Alaska. Fairbanks, Alaska would put Wisconsin Rapids to shame, I'll tell you that. They got plantings on every intersection where there's street lights. They got grass planted, they got murals on the side of the buildings. It's really a pretty town. And years ago, there wasn't a paved street in the city. if we're gonna attract people to Wisconsin Rapids, we're gonna have to keep our city neat and clean, I think. And Mr. Kellogg, or Alderman Kellogg's got a referral in on the garbage collection and rubbish collection. And I think we've gotta do something in that area too. Because as you drive through the city, and I've started to drive the streets of my ward, I see places where there's junk out in the road or next to the road that's been there for 3 months. We can't have that. So, you know, it's probably gonna take a little bit of money, but it's gonna pay off in the long run, I think.
You know, at finance all the time, we're improving of equipment, so if we really wanted to mow the Expressway Hill, I would have thought that a mower would have been brought forth to get that accomplished. Yeah, I know you want to save time, but we take the one of the most visible spots in the city and decide not to mow it. A greater concern I have, and nothing against your group, but where did the approval or the city decide to designate this as a Monarch Park? You know, I don't, nobody, it never came to the city or to any group, it was something, or to the city council or anything like that to approve. What's to stop me from taking a section of land with a group of people and putting in a cactus park? Because that's what we want to do. I just think that we lack a policy adopted by the council to allow activities like that to be done in a public space. And I think that's really what we need to be looking at, is trying to decide how we want to handle that for the next group that wants to come through and designate an area of something. But you know, I'm going to keep arguing mowing until we can get that space to look like a space that isn't neglected to any person traveling through our community that's not part of our community. And if they look over and think it's neglected, well, then we're failing here at the city. But if it looks like it's something other than non-mowed area, well, then it's easily to argue that, yeah, it's this or that. But I just think right now it doesn't look right. It doesn't look good for their community. That's my opinion. Thank you, sir.
Can staff investigate here and just see what it would cost to purchase a mower that could mow that hill?
About 40,000. About 40,000.
Oh, cheaper than I would have guessed even.
They have, when Toro has a mower that mows 26 degrees, it's 3,500. Toro has a mower that mows 26-degree hills, it's 3,500 model. I went to Toro and investigated. It'll mow a 26-degree angle.
The 3,500 model number.
The model number of the mower is
3,500.
Yeah, $3,500. Well, did you
No.
Did you get a price?
I have no idea.
Oh.
I didn't price anything, I just talked.
There's mowers that do it. And
Jim.
it's just, you know, and that may be just a thing to start with. I mean, we're at the end of other than the budget is right now, as far as.
Yeah, we need to find 3 or 4 hours
Right.
a week to, you know, that's part of the issue is that, you know,
Do
where else are we
you wanna
comfortable
buy it?
not mowing if we're gonna purchase a mower and mow this?
I'm
What-
not against those other areas he mentioned, I think that's okay.
Mhm.
This area is right in the middle, smack in the middle of town, across from a hospital, you know, and it's disgusting.
Jim, real quick, and we got it for a time essence, so we're running out of time here, Jim.
I would think that Public Works would have in the budget proposal, or can add to it, a additional person to be employed, just to help out, or just to do all the things that you said you can't do. Get another person in there. At the same time, buy the lawnmower. The part that we're talking about is the most visible spot that visitors or travelers that travel through town can see that bank. It looks like heck. Period. Simple. To burn it, you need DNR approval as well. That hill is unsafe for a butterfly garden or prairie grass if they expect people to go and see it. You slip and fall down that hill, you're gonna have a lawsuit. The milkweed is an invasive weed. The only way to kill it, you have to hand pick every single plant. You can't mow it down and mow it down and mow it down, expecting it to go away. It has a very large root system. You mow it.
But Jim, without getting too off a
Right.
topic, we're just talking about the lawn mowing. Your point about hiring another employee or budgeting,
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, I want to make I don't know if it's appropriate on this, but I want to make I'm not going to vote to approve the budget, and maybe I'll have this, see if I can get Steve to put it on his, having 2 full-time public works employees added to the budget. Because if we don't have enough time or resources, we need more people doing the job.
It's just public lands.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. If we don't have the time to do it, we either
Public
contract it
lands.
out.
On all public lands.
Short on everything.
That's
Short on snow blowing, short on everything.
Right.
So is that a motion?
Well, I don't know if I
Or
can.
do you just wanna,
Should I make a motion just for a symbolic motion that in essence of lawn mowing practices, make a referral to the finance committee to hire 2 more full-time street department employees. 2 more on top of what is budgeted for the 2020 budget. So I don't know if
That's a motion?
a motion to make a referral to the finance committee to include 2 more
consider
additional.
Hiring 2 more people.
Yeah.
Seconded.
All right, with all those in favor, say.
the only thing, where
You
I
wanna
do,
go 3?
where I do agree with, but
Do I hear
also
3?
to accomplish the mowing, we're gonna need different equipment or to do it somehow else with a weed whacker or something. If we decide that we're gonna mow that, if that would be the end result.
Well, and that's the thing, that may be
Do you want to
unresolved as
include
of
the
yet.
equipment to that, or just?
I think we can always purchase equipment, or we can always make the motion to purchase equipment or have a budget amendment, but make referral to the finance committee for 2 full-time, whatever the positions would be, general labor, whatever the, I guess, entry-level public works employees. Yeah, so that was the motion that I had. Bud, you seconded, you had potential further comment, concern, discussion?
No.
Motion on the floor, second, to make a referral to the finance committee to include 2 extra additional public works employees at the next week's finance committee meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No,
But
in favor.
3-0 in favor. We will go on to item number 10, Director of Public Works report.
I won't dwell on this because it's getting late, but I do want to mention that most of our major projects are complete for the season. We do have some work that's going to be extended on Chase Street. There's a few sidewalk handicap ramps that didn't get done, and we're expecting the paving work to happen later this week to get that finished up. But I asked that you take a look at the report and recognize all the activities that the staff and the Public Works team have accomplished in the month of October.
Item number 10, we just wrapped up. Item number 11, referral list. I don't know if I had anything completely major on there. Yes, sir.
I got 2.
Yes.
The first one is at a resident in the area of 6th and Lee, request that we eliminate the 2-hour parking between 6th and 8th. It's only between, 6th Street and 8th Street. That's the only 2 blocks that there's a 2-hour parking limitation. The other half of the road that goes down to 5th doesn't have it. So just if committee could look at removing that 2-hour parking restriction. And then the second one, I think staff probably could take care of, but is to look at street lighting on 12th and Parkwood. There's a lot of small kids and a lot of vehicles around there during the evenings because of the dance school there, and it's very dark. So if there is some street lighting, or look at possible street lighting.
Where is that at?
12th and Parkwood Drive.
Parkwood.
It's right behind Shopko.
Oh, yeah.
The cul-de-sac there, but there's a large amount of traffic and kids in there at night for safety. Yeah, right by Richie. No. I think that's something you guys can look at yourself. But it's a safety issue.
Going from backwards from the bottom of the list, request and review stormwater study for 1 Mile Creek from 16th to 2 Mile. I think what we'll do is we'll see what happens with the ponds. Does that sound
Oh, yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
We'll keep that on there just in case. Request to review amending ordinance wastewater commission. Have you been able to meet those wastewater commission meetings at all? Okay. Request to review areas of public access at or around Norton Pond. Has there been any movement? I know you guys are busy and everything, so.
Not yet. And we've talked about it internally, but we haven't come up with anything formal yet.
Request multi-year capital improvements plan. That's, I'm sure you guys are still working on that. I know 2 years ago you had mentioned that.
Yeah, I've got a summary for you.
Oh, you got one tonight?
I don't have it with me, but it is done.
Okay.
And we'll be looking to update that this spring, but
So
I can get you one for next month's committee meeting.
do you want it for next month, or is it?
Sure. No, it's done. Just for your information, I'm working with our new GIS specialist. You've seen it the last couple of years, and it's a spreadsheet table. For someone that works on it every day, it makes sense, but for the general public, it's a bit much. So we've been working on converting it to a GIS map so that you can click on a project on the map, get all the information. So that's a project that we're currently working on. I'd be glad to present what we have next month, and then when we get our GIS mapping done, I think you'll find that, we intend to make that accessible to the public. So if someone's interested in a project, you can just click on it and, really get all the information about it that we're presenting on the spreadsheet.
So that with that's not just like capital improvements in terms of like capital expenditures for a garbage truck or whatever. That's street improvements. That's water and sewer improvements.
Right.
Or it'd be sewer improvements because water would be on the utility side, but storm sewer. Okay, so
Right.
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
that'd
so
be cool.
so the capital improvement plan, I've kind of got broken up into a couple components. And I've got a cover letter. It defines how I'm currently defining capital improvements, and if you want to change that, we certainly can. So we've got a capital improvement plan. There's an equipment plan that Paul maintains, and then there's also a building and maintenance plan. They've kind of lumped all three of those so I can present them all at the same time, but keeping them separate, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know, is it similar to kind of, you had a map at one time with different colors in terms of, was that the Pacer map, or was that another map that you had shown with street improvements?
Yes.
Yeah, that was cool that you had. Referrals, develop a street resurfacing program separate but complementary to chip seal it. Is that finalized, or is that still?
So that's our resurfacing, and we have that in the budget. We presented that to the Finance Committee this evening. Permanent funding for that is still a little up in the air. We're we've got some concrete maintenance work that we don't need to do next year, and so we're utilizing those funds that we would have otherwise budgeted for some concrete work for our asphalt street repair. So we'll get it kicked off well that way, and actually we got it kicked off to some extent. The storm was a blessing in a way, because you can see in the downtown area first and second that you know, that's the type of resurfacing work that we're looking at, where a street, the subgrade is still fine, the curb and gutter for the most part is fine. We need to do a little bit of repair work. We're also looking at creating a map for those maintenance activities as well, so that, you know, for ourselves, so that we don't make a mistake and maybe
Do a part of town twice.
yeah, or do something for a maintenance project that in 2 years we're gonna
Dig up the road.
replace. So, but so I guess the short answer is yes, we have a plan, but it isn't formal in the form of policy or anything at this point. Certainly we have some stuff written up. We don't have a permanent funding source for it yet. So figure we get the foot in the door with what we have available currently in our public works budget for next year, and you know, again, we're looking at wherever we can to try to improve that. So, Bud, what we had discovered or evaluated is that in order to be sustainable, we really need to be resurfacing about 3 miles of streets a year. With 150 miles of streets in the maintenance we can do, that's just in general, right? And we're doing about 1 mile a year. And so the effect of that is that we get a little further behind every year, and that means we have a few more potholes, a few more cracks to fill, and we don't have extra resources to be performing those maintenance activities either. So it affects us. So we really want to try to develop a path to sustainability with our street maintenance work.
Did the state ever come up with that program where they evaluated every street in the state?
Yes.
And
Yes.
determine its life expectancy and what it would cost to?
It's a tool for us, because every municipality has different construction standards. There's different soil conditions throughout even our community. It's a tool, but it doesn't do all of what was.
Oh, I know, we worked on that for 3 years.
Yeah, and we do that every other year. We do a full assessment of our surface ratings, and we use that. That's mapped. We use that to help identify and pick our projects. So we're collaborating with the other utilities and trying to pick projects that make the most sense.
Seal coating, I think, is worth its weight in gold.
I agree.
I know she did a lot of seal coating.
Yes.
Which is good. But I got another question. I see that's an agreement that's being canceled, but I don't know what the agreement is.
That was at the finance
No,
committee.
that was before, that wasn't tonight.
Huh?
No.
That was earlier, yeah, that was at the finance committee. Evidently, there was a parking lot that we had, but.
That was in, okay, yeah.
But with that, real quick, we'll go through this, there's only a couple more. Kellogg neighborhood cleanup, I'll keep that on there, and Rayom, I'll discuss the future of A Street. That's been on there for 2016, but we don't know the future, so we'll just keep that on there. As far as anything else, you had year 2 I wrote down, and we'll go to item number 12. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I will move.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned at 9:52 p.m.